on February 18th with 25 and a half years of service, but he will continue on as our property inventory specialist. Thank you. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing while we are led in prayer by Chaplain Lenny LaGuardia.
Let us pray. Father, today we thank you that you are faithful, Lord, and that your mercies are made new every morning. Father, we pray blessing over our city. Today we gather to seek your face, to seek your wisdom and your understanding, Lord. I pray you protect those who serve, Lord, and bless their children. Bless the children of our city and bring peace to the children of our city, Lord, and all those who serve. In my Savior's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Mayor, do we have anyone from the city council today?
I believe there was a plan for Councilwoman Catherine Shields as the chair of the finance committee, but due to, I think, virtual technology issues, we'll hope to hold her over for next month.
All right, thank you. Administration Bureau Deputy Chief Michael Hicks.
Good morning.
Morning.
We're going to start off with a presentation from Lockton regarding healthcare.
All right. And I think that's Matt Tritt. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Matt Tritz, Senior Vice President at Lockton. I've been serving in the employee benefits group there at Lockton for 18 years, and here today as to support the appointed benefit committee and HR and fiscal divisions to go through the medical and dental insurance renewals for the year. So we're going to start with our medical plan, and then we are going to talk about a couple of very important benefits that Blue KC offers and has offered with telehealth, virtual care, and also the at-home program for those members that are out of the KC area. And then we'll go through the dental. So start with the renewal. I'll try to summarize this and not go word by word, but the initial renewal that came out from Blue KC was an 11.9 increase. They did agree to adjust that down to an 8%, so they gave a 4% concession. At the direction of the fiscal division, we partnered with fiscal and a benefit committee, and we did a full RFP of the market, and we surveyed 4 carriers. 2 were most competitive, being Blue KC and Aetna. And I'll go through some of the details here. As a result of the marketing effort, Blue KC reduced their increase from 8 to 4, so they gave a $1.5 million reduction to the current premium. And with plans as is, they gave a 12.9% rate cap for next year. Aetna was, they also proposed installing a new EPO plan that would look just like the HMO plan. Most of the members are on your HMO plan, and they did this as an effort to try to reduce cost. The EPO network has lower reimbursements, lower premiums than the HMO network. So we'll go through some details on that in a minute. But if you added in this EPO plan, your rate cap for next year would be 9.9, which is very good. Aetna also had a very strong renewal. As you can see, the numbers on the bottom, their response came in at 0, so they offered a 0% increase to current premium. They did also offer second-year rate caps based on plan performance. So it went from a 6.5% starting up to no guarantee, depending on what the plan performance was or the loss ratios were. The only difference between Blue Cross and Aetna on the rate guarantees is there is a firm rate guarantee for Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and not as firm, with Aetna. So we have a little bit of stability for the long term. The benefit committee is making a recommendation to renew with Blue KC, and they're also recommending to install and offer the new EPO Blue Select plan as an option for members to enroll in. And we'll go through what those premiums look like, because it will offer premium savings for the members and for the plan if they choose to enroll in that plan. The benefit committee did rank the two bidders based on 8 different criteria. First being competitive costs and future year costs. They also evaluated member disruption, what that would look like with a change and making a change. They also evaluated the administrative impact of making a change. Down below, the addition of the new plan mirroring HMO benefits with an out-of-pocket maximum. So the benefits of offering this plan, there is significant overlap already. So if a member is enrolled in the HMO plan right now, out of all the claims running through that plan, 89% of them would qualify or be in network in the new plan, and they price that premium 12% lower for the new plan. So it for sure is a value add to offer that, and doesn't cost the plan anything. So you have greater choice on a voluntary basis, doesn't replace any current plans, lower premium rates, $624 in annual contribution savings for family if they would enroll in that plan. It does not require that you have a PCP designation. And Blue Cross also offered a $50,000 communication stipend so that we can properly educate members and make sure they understand how the program works and the benefits of it. Here's what it would look like from a plan design. So just from left to right across the top, current PPO, current SpiraCare, EPO, and your HMO. And then the new plan is in blue, Blue Select Plus EPO. So you can see we really mirrored, or Blue Cross offered to mirror the benefits for the HMO. And they'll offer a premium reduction. And the reason is the network has a fewer number of hospitals, but the overlap is so great, it makes sense to offer it. Here's a financial summary of the current plans. Assuming no change to the enrollment and no migration, so this is just as is, the net increase would be 4%. Active cost share remains the same, so you can see we go through from now top to bottom in the black bars. The actives on the PPO plan, there's 223, there's 17 enrolled in the Spire plan, and you can see there's 1,381 enrolled in the HMO. So by far the HMO has the highest membership. And you can see the annual premium, what members pay and contributions, and then the net premium to the police department for that plan, or for the active, is $27.8 million. And then it goes through retirees under 65, retirees over 65. All retirees cover 100% of the premium that are enrolled. And then we finally get down to the bottom. Total annual premium is $38.2 million. Contributions from actives and retirees is $10.4 million, which results in a net premium of $27.8 million for the police. So what we did on this slide is just an attempt to demonstrate how the new plan offering could impact the premiums if we did have what I call a very conservative number. So if we conservatively estimated that 5% of members that were in the HMO plan enrolled in the new plan offering, I'm just going to go down to the bottom. It would reduce the net cost down by $922,000. So the increase would go from 4 to 3.45 with only 5% of members. We feel that's pretty conservative with proper education of the membership. Conservative number is 5, realistic is 10 to 15, and aggressive number would be 20.
I hate to interrupt you. You've mentioned education a couple of times. How do you go about educating the members?
Yeah, so we could do that in a variety of ways. You have to meet people where they are. We can do this. Largely, the most successful way to communicate is either face-to-face meetings with members, telephonic or like call centers, so they can call on their own time, make appointments with counselors, benefit counselors to do that. And Blue Cross Blue Shield is also offered to help in addition with our team at Locken with that. This is a snapshot of retiree premiums. Again, it's a 4% increase to current rates if they make no changes and remain in the plan that they're in. And I mentioned at the beginning a couple of important benefits. Here's one page. It's called Blue KC Virtual Care. So this, allows members to have telephonic visits, virtual visits, and sometimes it can result in cost savings. If this, again, is communicated properly and members use it, they could avoid emergency rooms, which are costly. They could avoid urgent cares that are costly if they can receive the care that they need virtually. This is an important benefit. They also have behavioral health care needs that are available telephonically. And there's a couple of bullet points there. We have some cost at the bottom, virtual care member costs. For the HMO, for the PPO, and for the Spira care, for office visits, and then also for behavioral health therapy. So it would be a goal to increase awareness around this benefit, and it's a valuable benefit. This also, since you have so many members in the HMO plan, which are known as local plans that don't offer out-of-network benefits, Blue KC does offer what's called away from home coverage. There's a few, qualifiers here. If you have students attending school out of state, families apart, or for whatever reason, a traveler, a long-term work assignment, you can receive the same level of benefits even in another city if you're not in HMO that are equivalent to the HMO here in Kansas City. So this is a really nice benefit to have. So I will pause right there. We ran through a lot of information pretty quickly. Any questions I can answer about the medical renewal, marketing process, or recommendation from the benefit committee?
Who do most of the members use? What hospitals do most of the members use now? And this new program that excludes some hospitals, what hospitals are excluded?
Yeah, so we're going to talk specifically about the Blue Select Plus network, which is attached to the EPO. And for reference purposes, it's the same exact network that's offered for the Spira network that you already have in. So narrow network, it's often referred to kind of as the I-35 network. Olathe Medical Center, Shawnee Mission Medical Center, University of Kansas Health System, North Kansas City Hospital, Children's Hospital, Liberty Hospital, Cameron Hospital. I'm pretty sure I got them all. Those are the major facilities that are in the Blue Select EPO. That would be the new one.
Not St. Luke's and
St. Luke's does not participate in that particular network. They do participate in the PPO and in the HMO.
Thank you.
I had a quick question too. You said it's locked in then for the next year for sure, as far as the rate goes. And then was it 2 years or 1 year? moving?
Yeah, thank you. Be happy to clarify that. So your rate is locked. It's a 4% increase.
Okay,
For the renewal is May 1st. So from May 1st of 2022 through the end of April 2023, that rate is locked in. What they have offered is a second-year rate cap. So for next renewal, what Blue Cross is saying is if you install the new plan option, the EPO, your renewal will be no worse than 9.9.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our dental plan. A very similar process. We did also send out requests for proposals to the market for dental. Your program has been with Blue KC for a long time, and they also responded, so I'll go through the details. Blue KC renewal was a rate hold, so they offered a 0% increase on the dental. They offered that for 2 years and a rate cap of 6% for the third year. So no plan design changes. And also reminded the dental plan is 100% employee paid. So this is not a department expense. A little detail about the marketing, and very similar to the medical, you can see on the bottom, Blue KC current, Blue KC renewal at 0, Aetna renewal, or Aetna proposed was 10% higher. MetLife proposed was 8% lower. The percentages are large. The premium on the dental plan is not nearly as large as the medical. You could see $111,000 is an 8% difference. The benefit committee recommendation is to renew the dental with no plan design or rate changes effective May 1st.
And I have a question on that. What amount are they getting covered? Is that like $1,000? Is it $1,500 on that? As far as,
I think it is a $1,500 annual
Okay.
maximum.
okay.
Had a plan design detail in here on
And
that.
anymore, that's like the best out there, which is sad to say.
It is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there a list of dentists or can they choose their own dentist?
So Blue KC has a network of dentists, right? So the benefits are better if they choose an in-network dentist versus out-of-network.
Can you explain the reason to not go with the Metropolitan Life offer, just seeing the 8% decrease on this year and then the rate cap in future years being slightly lower than Blue KC? Was it the service disruption idea or what's the thought
Yeah,
there?
sure. So I'm just going to refer back to the evaluation scorecard, that we went through, that the benefit committee went through when looking at this. And while $111,000 is a savings, from the scorecard, a couple of the categories here were historical partnerships, member disruption, internal administrative impact of change. So just the cost of internal change. Relatively speaking, the committee just voted that they would wanted to maintain the long-term relationship with Blue KC and that savings did not warrant a change to a new carrier.
I mean, what I might say is all three of those standards kind of seem like the same thing said in different ways. Historical relationship, because you've been with them, member impact, because members may need to change providers. And then I think the third had something similar there. I don't care enough necessarily to disrupt, but remind me the cost savings if we had gone with that. Is that, you said that's several $100,000?
The MetLife proposal cost savings was $111,000.
Okay, so it's not the most significant.
I think the other thing to realize, Mayor, is this is 100% employee paid. It's not subsidized by the department on the dental side.
So the decrease, if yielded, would be more into, I guess, employees and members, but a fairly small amount.
fairly small amount. And, to summarize kind of anecdotally, the conversation from the benefit committee was a couple of dollars per paycheck isn't worth the disruption once you spread that out over all of the membership.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
We need to move approval.
Deputy Chief Hicks, are you asking us to move for approval or?
No, this was just information for the board.
Okay. At some point, though, will we need to approve it?
Your finance people seem to think it is.
You want to do it today?
You can negotiate it. Yeah, why don't we, because it is a significant contractual obligation. I'll move approval of the benefits committee recommendations as to both plans.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and second. All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no. Ayes have it. All right.
Moving on to our personnel summary. That's under tab D, letter B as in boy. Right now, KCPD has 1,688 members. That's 1,154 law enforcement members, 22 academy recruits, and 507 non-sworn employees. That's as of January 31st.
I'm sorry. My computer shows tab B, D. I'm sorry, I'm backwards. Go ahead.
In January, we had 5 law enforcement members either retire or resign, and 2 non-sworns for 7 members lost. And in February, we've had 6 police officers either retire or resign, 2 sergeants, and 4 non-sworn, for a total of 12. So we are doing way better in retaining our members. Since the pay increases in December, there's actually been some members that have actually pulled back their retirements. So our monthly retirement average is way below right now what it was in 2021, 2020, 2019, and 2018. So we're doing a much better job of retaining our employees. I just do want to take a quick note that unfortunately we did lose a member of the police department. Bobby Smith was a 36-year veteran of our crime lab in the firearms unit, and he passed on February 2nd of a terminal illness, and he's going to be greatly missed. Some good news for February is we started the academy on February 7th. We have 22 recruits in that academy right now that are scheduled to graduate in August, and we are working towards creating a new class for May. I'll kind of move right into our recruitment update. Our employment unit is continuing to work to recruit all types of people to come and work for KCPD. They're going to colleges, community events, and now they're working with Sergeant Pinkerton from the academy. He has a secondary group that's doing the same thing, that's spreading our word as much as we can to get as many members as we can for the police academy and for our non-sworn positions. Right now we have a large pool ready for a May class. We're hoping to get however many we can for that class. We have a recruitment video we'd like to show you that was produced by our media unit, Cher Conger.
Kansas City, Missouri. In this town, we're proud of our community. We respect our neighbors, and we love our hometown barbecue. Here in Kansas City, we brag about our kids between innings at baseball games. We chat about our pets before the game-winning touchdown. And you can always find us with our friends enjoying the sweet sounds of Kansas City jazz. Here in Kansas City, we all have our own unique stories. So what's your life story going to be? Do you want a story about helping your community? Maybe a story about the great friends you made. Maybe it's about the children you watched grow up, or the dog that became your partner. Do you want a story about the life you wish you had, or the life you created to remember? In life, there will always be difficult days, but we promise you will have some wonderful ones. So what do you want your story to be about? Create the story of your life. Create the memories you want to remember. And create it all with us, the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department.
And with that, I'll conclude my presentation.
Wait, I want to know where this is being shown.
Right now, it's through social media. Our recruiters are going to show it at their events. And I don't remember the exact social media outlets, but I'm sure it's on our Twitter page. Oh, it's on YouTube as well. Cher told me it's on YouTube.
Thank you. Very nice.
And it's been shared, if I may add, on a lot of, not just by our department's page, but a lot of other folks have shared it on YouTube, Instagram and Facebook and other things. Another thing I respect, although this is not a political institution, you put in several barbecue restaurants, which is good. Didn't pick a favorite. And so you knew that. But thank you. Very good presentation.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Deputy Chief Mike Wood.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My information is under tab C. You also have the daily homicide analysis report with a blue sheet. There have been 22 homicides this year to date, compared to 19 at this time last year, for a 16% increase. The 5-year average for homicides year to date is 18. We're currently up 22% compared to the 5-year average. You also have the paper copy of the non-fatal shooting comparison report. From January 1 to February 22nd, there have been 55 non-fatal shooting victims. In 2021, we had 55. So there's no change. In 2022, we've had 42 non-fatal shootings in January compared to 35 in January of last year, for a 20% increase. Still under tab C, you'll find the 2022 non-fatal shooting report that shows the 42 shooting victims in January. 26 of those were initially cooperative with detectives. However, 16 or 38% were uncooperative and did not wish to press charges against whoever shot them. Black males accounted for the highest number of non-fatal shooting victims, with 28, or 67% of the total number of victims. The second highest for non-fatal shootings is white males, and there were 7. There were 6 black females that were victims and 1 white female. The age group with the highest number of non-fatal shooting victims is 18 to 24, as you would probably expect, unfortunately. They had 14 victims, or 33% of the total. 25 to 34 age group was second, with 11 victims, or 26%. There were 2 victims under 17 for that reporting period. There were 10 known suspects involved in the shootings. 5 of those suspects were described as black males, 3 as black females, and 1 was described as a white male and 1 Hispanic male. Of the 10 known suspects, 6 were 25 to 34, and 2 were 45 and over. One was both in the 18 to 24 and the 35 to 44 groups. On page 5, you'll notice that the KCPD recovered firearms report. We recovered 202 firearms in January of 2022 compared to 166 in January of 2021. And the average for over the last 5 years in January is 198. So we're just a little over the average. Next, I'll discuss case submissions to the county prosecutor's office. During the month of January, KCPD submitted a total of 274 cases to the county prosecutor's offices. 233 of those cases were to Jackson County, 35 to Clay, 6 to Platte. Charges were filed in 96 cases during the month. 31 cases were charged in custody, and 66 warrants were issued. 39 cases were returned for additional work, and there were 107 cases that were declined during the month of January. And subject to your questions, that will conclude my report for this month.
I had thought not to bring this up, but you just mentioned that there were 66 warrants issued. Do we do no-knock warrants in
These are arrest warrants.
KCPD? I understand that, but just as a,
No-knock search warrants?
yeah,
It is a tool that's available to us, but it's at a last-ditch effort. And we just met on this with all our people that serve those type of warrants. We're generally going to serve those instead of the no-knock and just going in the house as a surround and call out, more like an Operation 100, and give those folks the opportunity to come out as opposed to actually do the no-knock. Could I come up with a reason why we would at some point do a no-knock? Yes, but the number of those that we will do is going to drop significantly, probably almost to nothing.
okay.
Yes.
It already has dropped down. Last year, we had very few of the no-knock warrants, and right now it has to go up to the bureau commander to have it approved, which has to be, all the way up the chain of command. So we look at that, but we are trying to take a different approach on our search warrants and trying to de-escalate things as much as possible. So we're trying much more to get people to come out of houses rather than us going in first.
Right. So the judge does not issue what type of warrant it should be?
They can, but
Can.
it doesn't, we would still execute what we think is best, which we think, given the parameters today, is try and get people to come out to us. So that's generally our take. I mean, like Mike says, there's not an absolute on everything. There's always a something, but in our approach now, our overall philosophy is to try and get people to come out to us.
But the warrant has to be authorized by a judge.
It does. It has. Yes, correct. But that doesn't mean we have to serve it in that capacity.
I understand, but we can't just decide we're going to.
Correct.
And just for a little, and Kathy may know much more than me, knowing judges better, et cetera. It's a fairly extensive review they'll go through, particularly for the no-knock warrant. That, although certainly there are cases that come out in the country about such approval, there's a much higher standard on that than we'll see from other warrants issued. And so it goes through several layers of review before we would resort to, I think, such an approach.
That answer?
Yes, thank you. All right.
One question. We continue to see a fairly high percentage of case declinations from Jackson County, which is like in property crimes, 29%, which is significantly higher than any of the other counties. Violent crimes, 30+%. And these don't include the marijuana declinations, which we're already aware of. But to what do you attribute the, for example, property crimes, why we have a much higher declination in Jackson County?
Well, they see a much higher volume of cases, obviously, to begin with. But to get into the specifics of each one, I don't know. I'd have to do a deeper dive. Some of those that are declined are for further investigation. Some of them, they're holding in abeyance and stuff like that. There's a host of reasons why. And their caseload, I'm sure, factors into it and what they want to, what they have time to prosecute. I would hope that they're probably leaning more towards the violent crimes, but there are a significant amount of those declinations as well. Some of those, again, a host of reasons, not good witnesses, not reliable victims even, and the cooperation level plays into that as well, I would assume.
Anything else, David? All right. Deputy Chief Karen True, thank you. Deputy Chief Woods.
Good morning, Commissioners. My
Right.
first presentation is from our Social Services Supervisor, Tamara McIntosh, who was just recently promoted to the position.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, social services, we've had a couple of referrals sent to us here recently. As we know, social services
Do
deals
us a
with
favor, move the microphone down just a bit. Thank you.
what was I saying? Oh, social services. We know that most of our referrals come from officers, and some of them come from specialized units. Here recently, we've had referrals come in. This was due to a problem repeat offender. He was a nuisance in South Zone. Right now, I'm covering two zones, South Patrol and Metro. Property crimes came to me about a suspect. He had been stealing from businesses, stealing from people's houses outside. And it was something that property crimes officers have been out pretty much almost daily, getting calls from places like auto zones or different places around the area that the suspect continued to just terrorize. So they were at wit's end about what to do and came to me and was like, Tamara, is there any way that you can assist us? Because the businesses as well as the neighborhood, they're kind of tired of this. So I was able to contact our city prosecutor and ask, we have all these things going on. This is a repeat offender. He's constantly stealing. He's found in people's cars. He's claiming that all these things are his, and comes to find out that, there's mental health issues and he's also houseless. But he's never had any kind of treatment. He's been to court several times. He's been on 8 probations, and just had all these things going on, and he's never ever been in front of a judge to actually get these things taken care of. So in speaking to the city prosecutor, we were able to not only get him charged, but also get his probation and parole officer on board to actually violate him. So he was arrested, and unfortunately he was released, and I was have to call the city prosecutor again. And we came to an agreement that anytime that he would commit any type of crime, that he would go ahead and get charged. So that way we can build up more of a case to where we can kind of move along to where we can get him off the streets to get help. So he had went to a elderly lady's home. He was wandering around her house. He was trying to get inside her door. He was found on camera moving her knob, which to me, he was escalating because he hadn't done that before. It was something that I felt that was very important and very disturbing. So with that, the officer was able to get the video from the Ring doorbell that they sent to me, that I was able to submit to the city prosecutor to also assist with getting him charged. So with that, after that, he was arrested, went to court. They decided to charge him with not for violation of probation, and also for all the other charges he had, because we had like 25 charges on him. And so he has been incarcerated for the past 4 months, and he's also getting help with his mental health. And I found a program that assists with people that, I would say kleptos, who just cannot just have this impulse issue. So he is getting help with that. So he has not been an issue with South Patrol for the past like 3 or 4 months. Also had a case where it was a domestic violence situation. Social services also deals with repeat calls, trying to keep the call volume down. The family, they were having a situation, the suspect found out that, the victim found out that suspect was cheating. And so with that, he decided that she needed to leave the home. There were violence going on. Three calls were made to that house within past like 5 hours. Officers came, they contacted me on a Saturday to come out and assist. So they were able to bring the victim to the station because the suspect had decided that he was going to threaten to kill her cat if she didn't leave, because that was the way that he was going to get her out the house. So I went to the station, I talked to the victim, we discussed what was going on in the home, how can we make it better? Did she realize the situation that she was putting herself in? And what else could we do from there? So we had that conversation. Surprisingly, she actually understood, which to me means that she was ready to leave, that issues were arising to the point where she knew it was time to go. So I was able to contact a motel by Worlds of Fun. She stayed there for about 2 days. Then I had a community resource assist me to keep her there for like a week and a half while me and her worked on other housing options. So we were able to fill out her application for Hillcrest Ministries, which is a transitional living house where they do budgeting. You can stay there like as long as 2 years. They help you with any budget issues you have, help you save money. They go by your income. We got that application submitted, and within a week and a half, she was able to actually move in with her 9-year-old daughter. So that was a success. So those are the 2 that I have so far that social services is handling so far, but we're doing more with vulnerable victims, repeat offenders, the elderly, children's abuse issues, and we're getting more referrals as we go. It's really, really picking up here lately. We're all super, super busy. But it all seems to be working out. The officers are really appreciative of what we're doing and how we're able to help and how they're also able to help. So
Thank you, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. And I want to congratulate her on her promotion to supervisor. She's done a great job.
All right.
The next presentation we have is a video in honor of Black History Month, and it is the brainchild of Officer Malcolm Whitlaw. So he is going to show his video.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This video is something that I created for Black History Month because I wanted to showcase some of the good that was happening in our department that we all might get to see, but some people don't get to see. So what we have here is an officer who has come from this community and has dedicated himself wholly and fully, in every sense of the word, to take care of these kids who he considers to be family. And I just want everybody to take a moment to watch this video. And if you have any questions at the end, I'd be happy to answer those. You good, nephew? You good, niece? All right. You do the same. I want to be a school resource officer because I worked for the streets for 3 years, and I saw kids in my neighborhood in these streets doing some things they shouldn't be doing. I started talking to them, building relationships with them, and I said, you know what? I have more impact if I can see them every day. Why you skipping? I got 5 minutes. Don't be late, all right? You doing all right? Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be on there too. And I had a lot of interaction with my community. I've been blessed to work South Patrol, which is South Kansas City, the same area I grew up in. I went to Burke Elementary. I went to Smith Hill Junior High School, and I graduated in Ruskin. So to me, being a school resource officer at Ruskin was my dream job. These kids need to see people that look like them doing things that they want to do. So you'd be surprised. A lot of kids want to be police officers, and I encourage them to do so. In Kansas City, I tell them all the time, this is the greatest job on earth. I mean, it's something different every day. It's never the same thing. I build relationships with these kids. A lot of these kids, I went to school with their parents. So I call them all nephews and nieces. It's like family to me. I got a student now that's a sophomore at Ruskin. I actually changed her diapers. So it's like, when I tell you it's really like family, it's like family. The culture of Ruskin, it's changed over the years. When I first came here in 2015, Ruskin was known for fighting. It's a bad school, bad community. All they do is fight. Don't send your kids to Ruskin. When I hear the community or anybody outside Ruskin speaking negative towards Ruskin, that's not what it is for me. Because for me, I think I've been successful. My son is a police officer in Kansas City, Missouri. He also works off duty as a school resource officer when opportunity presents itself for him to do so. And a lot of it is these kids, once again, have so many challenges at home before they get to school. So something as simple as meeting the kid when they come to the door, hey, how you doing? How was your weekend? How was last night? Is everything okay? Just a simple conversation with them changes the day, because nobody's ever asked that. You know, from their world, everybody's always telling them to do something. Nobody's asking how they feeling or what they think. So if you ask them how they feel and what they think and what their day is going on, what I find out is you get a different response. They'll tell you and they'll share with you. And once they know that you care for them genuinely, they'll do anything you ask them to do. So I think that's why we have the success we have now today at Ruskin High School. So I see the culture changing now for kids to not want to talk to police and don't come to police. They talk to me. They talk to all of us. Every one of my kids has access to me personally and my personal cell phone number. So they call me and their parents call me. They all have the same access. They'll call me on the weekend because that's what I believe I'm here. I'm here to serve you. As a police officer, I'm a servant to the community is how I look at it. And I serve with compassion. I serve with empathy. I serve with understanding, because we're all one situation, one choice removed from being in a bad situation, right? And I tell everybody also every day, and I believe this with all my heart, I don't have one bad kid at Ruskin High School, but I have a bunch of bad choices. If you walk with me and you be in the halls, you see these kids are great. They're loving, they're caring, they're compassionate. But at the end of the day, they're kids, so they don't know. Us as adults, I feel we have the obligation to teach them and show them the right way and lead them the right way. Because if we do that, then they'll go on and be productive in the community and in the city and environment that they live and work in. When I see my kids go to college and get scholarships on signing days, man, that's a win for me. If I get one kid that came in here with a bad attitude and was, man, forget the world, but then after having a conversation with me, they see hope, that's a win for me. That's why I come back every day. I love this, man. I love this. I love these kids, and they know it. I'm telling you, I have a relationship with kids that graduated 5 years ago that's in college. I got a kid playing football at University of Minnesota that calls me, tells me, hey, he had a rough day at practice or he had a great day at practice. I mean, I have a relationship with kids that I wouldn't have if Ruskin High School didn't provide me that opportunity. And I'm thankful for it, and I thank God for putting me in this position and allowing them, for these kids to bless me. And that's what they understand. They bless me more than I can ever bless them, I believe.
That's all. I appreciate you all watching that.
Wow.
Any questions or anything from you?
That's great.
So how have you dispersed this so that more than just, obviously it's fabulous, so we'd like others to see it.
So when the video initially was posted, it acquired almost 2,000 views in 10 hours. I mean, it was spreading naturally and organically through the community. There was a hiccup and we had to make some adjustments because of just wanted to put out the best product. So we reposted it, and now as it being reposted, it has almost 700 views. It's on our Facebook, it's on everywhere that it can be. And I think the important thing is that people seeing someone who truly cares about their community. You don't really have to sell that too much. I think that it's spread because you can truly feel his passion for what he's doing. And for him to be from that community, I also grew up in that community, and to see the work that they're doing at Ruskin High School to change the imagery is impactful. And that's why I did what I did. And that's why I continue to do what I do. So I appreciate everyone who's watched the video today, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for putting that together. And I think that's so powerful and so important to focus on the good. And I would like to see this on every national media station out there, because by focusing on an ounce of good, you get mountains. And that's where we need to be, is in those communities and focusing and being there for those kids and giving them confidence. So thank you for sharing that. That was very powerful.
But Officer Whitelaw, the one thing that I will add is, notwithstanding what happens on television news or anything like that, the impact he's having on each child sticks with them. And so in future incidents or interactions, no matter what they hear, they'll always they knew Officer Rogers back at Ruskin, and that he was a very good officer who cared about them and all of that. That's why I think actually I've worked with him on a few different things. I mean, that's why sharing that's impactful for our community. Seeing the kids respond to him is impactful. And so I commend you on that. And the amazing thing about social media is, better than me, it does just keep spreading. And so we'll put it out there, and months from now, people be clicking on it and saying, I didn't know they were at my high school or something, and all that. So thank you.
Thank you. He put a lot of hard work into that video, and we're really thankful. I think the video is an excellent example of what an impact an officer can make out there in their community. I'm going to go through some slides. My written report is on tab E that has the response times and the traffic summary. Now for my slideshow, the first slide is Captain Jones. She was on patrol one morning near 25th and Prospect. She saw a house on fire, so she went and pulled the gentleman from the house to safety. And she was there because it was really cold that day, and she was letting some children who were waiting for their bus warm up in her car. So we're very proud of her. Next video, Officer Hamill. There was a call for service. A lady had her two car seats out on the sidewalk waiting for a car. The car seats were stolen. Officer Hamill was able to get a description of the vehicle, track down the vehicle, and recovered her car seats by noon. So she was very thankful and happy. We had a lot of vehicles that were broken into in Westport. Officers really wanted to get these people in jail to stop all the property crimes from happening in the area. They were able to track down 3 suspects, get them arrested, and since then they recovered multiple firearms. And since then, the break-ins really have gone down in that area. So it just kind of shows when we get those right people in jail that are committing these offenses, the offenses go down. Tyreek Hill, Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver Tyreek Hill, joined KCPD, KCFD, and taken it to the streets to donate items to the homeless on the west side. This is very great thing, and they were very appreciative of all the help that they received. Polar Plunge, this is for Special Olympics. Every year they have an event where participants get donations, and those donations go back to Special Olympics. So these are some of our department members. It's Captain Asper there, and he is one of the volunteers that heads up our KCPD's Special Olympics activities. So he did a plunge and raised money for Special Olympics. This is a very exciting story. Officer Whitney from East Patrol has a history of law enforcement in his blood. Both of his parents were officers in Compton, California, and his grandfather actually retired from Kansas City Police Department. And his mom flew the helicopter during the 1994 O.J. Simpson white Bronco police chase. We just thought it was a really interesting thing that we just found out about. Very proud of him. And then we also have a new addition to our police academy. We have Carl Oakman Jr. He joined KCPD, so we're very proud of him. And as you remember, his father, was Deputy Chief Oakman here, is now Chief of Kansas City, Kansas. Our negotiator team, these are a group at minimum who work very hard during all different, they get called out for negotiations, Operation 100s, And these are two of them, Officer Kenobi and Sergeant Cowdery, who were part of a dangerous standoff with a suspect that lasted over 5 hours. And Sergeant Cowdery is going to be retiring from KCPD during this year, and he will be replaced by Sergeant Sean Campbell from our investigations unit. And we are going to have a presentation, our negotiator team, next month. This is baseball and badges. So KCPD partnered with the I Am King Foundation and held a clinic at the Urban Youth Academy. They help officers help youth with their skills in baseball. It's just a positive engagement and a positive time for the youth to see police officers and for that interaction to happen on a very organic level. So, and that is it for my slideshow. I just have one statistic that I wanted to point out. During that last snowstorm of last week, during those 2 days, I just pulled the statistics from that to see how many accidents we had. We had 24 injury accidents during that time frame and 63 non-injury accidents. We responded to all of the injury accidents and some of the non-injuries if we had time. If there were no injuries, we did ask during that time for citizens to go to the station to make the report in person. And then my next presentation that I have is on the detention facility unit, and it's Captain Jeffrey Hughley, who runs that unit. He's going to give you an overview of detention, where it was, and where we kind of see it going. Captain Hughley?
Okay. Good morning. Thank you for having me today to talk to you all about Detention Services Unit. So I always like to set the tone and start with a quote in any presentation I ever do. If the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to see every problem as a nail. And that's the theme throughout detention services. As you'll see moving forward, there's a lot of collaboration, there's a lot of cooperation. And all of my individuals, they see the humility and humanity in individuals who come across into our custody, no matter why they're there. So I also want to start by thanking a couple individuals who are a vital part of how we're functioning and where we're going as detention services. Two of the individuals are here, if you don't mind standing up for me. I have two of my supervisors back there, Todd Lane and Robert Price. I also have Amy Bingham, she's not here, she's on PMs. Mike Heagley, he's another supervisor. Dietrich Hilliard, and Timothy Trainer and staff. Those individuals keep things moving forward. Of course, I provide management and oversight, but they are the subject matter experts that help things function where they are. And they couldn't do it, and we couldn't do it without Municipal Court, Megan Fennistill and her team, as well as City Manager's Office, Brian Platt and Kamiko. I've had conversations with them, so have people before me, as well as the mayor and his office on where we're going next, and members of City Council for jail. So before we get into how we function now, as well as where we're going, it's important to recap where we've been. So as you all know, or if you don't know, Municipal Correction Institution, it closed in 2009 and outsourcing began to Jackson County. Following that, after 77 years, we closed headquarters detention on the 8th floor here in 2014. The city renegotiated their contract with the county, and we started outsourcing to the county as well. In 2018, Jackson County decided to terminate the city's contract, and all inmates had to be out of their custody by 2019. And then we had a short contract, or the city per se, with Heartland Center for Behavioral Change, which only lasted very shortly in 2019, to where now the city outsources to Vernon County and Johnson County for jail housing. So currently for detention services, we function out of 3 actual divisions. So Metro Patrol Division, that's our transfer hub between Vernon and Johnson County. So what happens there is individuals who are remanded into custody by a court through video court or municipal court, they end up being transferred out of Metro Patrol Division to one of those counties. We also do bondings through Metro Patrol Division. We still have COVID protocols in place. So South Patrol Division, if anybody comes in our custody with COVID or COVID symptoms that doesn't require medical attention, we isolate them to South Patrol Division until they can post bond. East Patrol Division processes a higher volume of arrests. You can also post bond at that location. So juvenile booking, it's a federal and state law that juveniles must be out of sight and sound of adults. So North Patrol Division and Center Patrol Division are utilized for juvenile booking. We don't house juveniles more than 6 hours. It's a straight booking process where we book them, take photographs, and either release them to their parents or they're dropped off to JJC. So statistics. This is as recent as the month of January. As you see there, we processed 951 bookings just for the month of January this year. Now, that's not delineated down to city, state, and federal hold harmless agreements, but you can see there, we process a lot of volume through KCPD. It also has signature bonds there, as well as individuals who have bonded out of custody. So from there, there's staffing. So from a budgetary standpoint, we're budgeted for 41 positions. That's 1 captain, myself, 6 supervisors, and 34 detention officers. Our current staffing is 29 detention officers. So shameless plug, if you all have anybody out there who wants to come join our organization, we're hiring. So municipal court, this is more for the public as well as the board. Sean Hess, who runs our CIT and our special projects, we partnered with municipal court yet again. So for individuals who come into our custody and are transferred to either Vernon or Johnson County, you can go to the city's website, as you see here, and click on that link. And you can see if we were in our custody the day before. So it's crystal report based. So it's not real time, but at least if you haven't seen the loved one for a day or two, that's one place you can maybe check or start to see if they came in our custody or out of our custody. So I talked about where we're going next steps. And right before me, our social workers spoke. You all saw the video. So there's individuals out there who sometimes just need a second chance or second go at it. They make honest mistakes. So I can say this for myself. The mayor and I've had this conversation, city managers, that we need to do something different and focus on resources moving forward to provide actual second chances. So as recent as last Thursday, even on a snow day, we had a meeting with consultants. So KCPD, municipal court, the city, we all came to the table to figure out how are we going to change and champion this and what outcomes do we want to see moving forward. And so from there, we'll build systems and strategies, but we are moving towards a better solution than what we have now of outsourcing to 2 counties and to provide actual resources for individuals who come into our custody. And that completes my presentation. If there's any questions.
I'll hop in real quick if I may. I appreciate the work you've done, Captain, and everyone. I think you laid out the history well, and the history is what it is. We could look at perhaps it wasn't a great idea to get rid of the municipal farm years ago, any number of things, but here we are. And so I think going forward, the conversations continue between the city, the police department, the municipal court, and others about a more permanent solution for an outcomes-based center, either that being some relationship with Jackson County or having an annex where we can run the situation, or even looking at an independent city facility. It's important those conversations occur now as there's infrastructure money running around, and the city, I think, remains committed to this because I think we all recognize that we have a somewhat unsustainable situation with folks going to Johnson and Vernon County, and I thank them for housing our folks, but nevertheless, you can't quite do that. We've had situations with different facilities, nonprofits in Kansas City that are close to where our detainees are released, and we all recognize the need. We also recognize there'll be real expense there. So thank you for those conversations. Even though I don't like consultants, I'm glad they're keeping us talking and moving in the right direction.
Thank you, Captain Hughley. The next presentation is from Major Ryan Mills. He oversees our Special Operations Division, and under that is the Tactical Response Teams, which he's going to talk about.
Good morning. As you said, I'm Major Ryan Mills. I'm the supervisor of our Special Operations Division. Under the umbrella of Special Operations Division is also the helicopter unit, the bomb and arson section, and the K-9 officers. You've heard from K-9 officers and helicopter unit in the past, but today I'm here to talk about our tactical response teams. There are 3 captains assigned to the tactical response team. Each of them is responsible for 1 individual team. If we are fully staffed, we have 36 officers and 7 supervisors. They work generally from 9 in the morning until about 11 o'clock at night. They do share an on-call rotation. It's a 3-week period. Of each 3 weeks, each team is on call for 1 of those weeks, 24 hours a day. They are a flexible group of officers who can assist with a variety of needed functions on short notice and are a support element for the rest of the police department. Some of those obligations they have are special patrol projects as needed in high crime areas, security for events such as parades, large gatherings, and the entertainment districts of the city. They assist with dignitary protection. They assist with arresting wanted fugitives, formal funeral details. They serve search warrants. They help answer calls for service. They also conduct annual training during our in-service for every law enforcement member of the police department and academy classes in active shooter response and other topics. In-service has recently begun and will run every week through fall of this year. They not only conduct training internally, but externally as well. Prior to COVID, they would conduct approximately 100 different sessions of active shooter training for area businesses and schools in the metro. This is all done free of charge as well. The primary responsibility for the tactical response teams, however, is Operation 100s. Operation 100 is defined as an armed barricaded situation, a hostage situation, or a sniper attack. In 2019, there were 38 Operation 100s. In 2020, there were 44. In 2021, there were 56. So far, year to date, we've had 7 Operation 100s. An Operation 100 can be initiated by any supervisor on the police department. It triggers a response from us, our hostage negotiation team, and a variety of support elements. Of the 3 captains that are assigned to the division, 2 of them are required to respond on all Operation 100s along with myself. We work together as a team and collaborate to work towards the best possible solution for that incident. We work in close cooperation with our hostage negotiation team, and during the event, we continually and critically evaluate the objectives, our abilities, and experiences to make sure we're operating within the confines of the law and the expectations of the community and national trends towards a peaceful resolution. One of the best things we do is slow down a tense situation and work together to accomplish these goals, and I'm very proud of the work that they do. They are calm, professional, and deliberate. While much of the actual work is done at our command post, we spend a great deal of time researching, learning, and discussing a variety of applicable trends, topics to better prepare ourselves for what we may encounter in the future. Late last year, the National Tactical Officers Association hosted a conference in Kansas City. That conference encouraged us to remain progressive and transform the way we train our own members. We encourage our staff to become experts in their fields, come back and train ourselves internally to increase the skill set of all of our members. And we've also taken a more critical look at our decision-making process to ensure we are utilizing our staff as efficiently and effectively as possible. One example is our response to strictly suicidal subjects, where criminal nature may not be involved. In those instances, we are now more apt to defer a response from our tactical team to our crisis intervention team, our hostage negotiation team, or our social workers as a better solution. It's in this assignment we're responsible. I believe we're responsible to continually learn and improve on how to better ourselves and maintain consistent and constant standards to provide the best outcome possible for our citizens. Is there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. And he has done a great job of bringing what he talked about, slowing down our Operation 100s and not immediately going in. And if we do have a suicidal suspect, a party, getting other resources that are probably more appropriate than a tactical response team in there to talk to this person. My next presentation is from Major Kari Thompson. She is going to talk about Arrowhead and some problems they had out there in the parking lot, and then some things that she did to help mitigate the problems. Major Thompson.
President Tolbert, the board, Chief Smith, and our deputy chiefs, and all who are here today, good morning.
Morning.
I am Major Kari Thompson. I'm the division commander of the exceptional East Patrol Division here in Kansas City. Just to give you a little backstory on what was going on here in our city last summer, we started to see an uptick in a trend in theft from autos in our party districts, our Westport, Power and Light, 18th and Vine, Crossroads areas. And the thing that we saw were that from these vehicles, guns were being taken, and that was the primary target. Civilian Marcia Cook out of CPD, she is a criminal analyst there, noticed that the numbers of theft from autos where guns were being doubled each month, starting in May. After discussions with CPD, East Patrol, and Metro trying to collaborate, we started to form a plan. Forming this plan with our impact units, surveillance, looking at the crime stats, and we decided it was time for us to act. An operation plan at East Patrol was devised by Captain Josh Heinen to alleviate and target these members that we, through car checks, ped checks, traffic stops, had been able to identify. This group had been identified prior to the operation because we had also located firearms with these individuals that had come back to the locations that I had noted. On the night of November 1st, at a Chiefs game at Arrowhead, video surveillance in those particular lots that we had noted were set, and we were able to observe individuals from the different groups that we had identified in those lots. Through surveillance cameras and the assistance with Arrowhead personnel, we were able to get officers to this area. Officers approached the individuals who ran from a vehicle, leaving the vehicle that they arrived in. The vehicle was subsequently recovered and included several stolen guns inside, and we were able to actually identify who was in the vehicle and put them at this location. ATF partnered with us on that Wednesday, and 3 simultaneous search warrants were served at 3 different locations in our city. The first was served out in South Patrol, where several guns were recovered. The second location was in East Patrol, where several guns were recovered and we were able to take into custody 2 subjects. And the final happened in Metro, where our targeted individual, our ringleader, was located with several guns as well. Federal indictments have been handed down on 4 individuals that were all tied to the string of theft from autos that plagued our local party districts and Arrowhead. Since this operation, the theft from autos at Arrowhead dropped significantly. Going forward, I'd like to thank Major Ryan Mills, who was able to coordinate off-duty employment, as well as help us with the on-duty deployment, working with Arrowhead and providing better lighting at that location. Thanks to Major Karen and the men and women of the traffic unit, who also were able to place patrols at the entrances and exits at the gates to stop those that were coming in once the game started, that were actually the ones that were perpetrating the problem. I would like to also thank, again, Captain Josh Heinen, Sergeant William Pooley of East Patrol Impact, Civilian Crime Analyst Deb Hagan, the East Patrol Property Crimes Unit, Sergeant Todd Templeton, CPD Impact, CPD Property Crimes, Civilian Marcia Cook, the crime analyst at CPD who started this whole thing, Metro Impact, Sergeant John Pickens, and South Patrol Impact. Our federal partners at ATF, Special Agent Payne and Special Agent Osen, were key in getting these federal indictments. I want to remind our community that you cannot leave valuables inside your vehicles. As we are seeing an uptick slightly in our city continuing, we want to remind those, please do not leave your valuables, your firearms, and anything of value in your vehicles. Or do you have any questions on what we did this summer at Arrowhead and in our party districts?
I don't want you to tell me anything that would keep somebody or help somebody steal from cars. So if that's a secret, don't tell me. But when they're coming into Arrowhead Stadium after the game has started, what does Captain Karen and his people, what did they do? I mean,
Absolutely, yes, ma'am. They had patrols there, the traffic guys there that would stop the individual, stop the car and ask them, are you here? Do you have a ticket? Are you going to the game? Just different questions. And a lot of times they were not able to answer those effectively, and they were turned around and asked to leave unless they were coming here for a purpose. So yes, that is how we were able to stop that. To also give you guys just numbers on not only Arrowhead. Arrowhead, we had over 16 thefts of guns. In our Power and Light district during that time frame of June to November 2021, we showed around 40. And in Westport, we had 85. I would like to give you guys just a picture here of what we actually were able to recover on November 4th. These items were recovered by ATF personnel to include narcotics as well. And this is just a snapshot of some of the weapons that we were able to recover on that date. And these weapons do come back to theft from autos taken from the Crossroads, Power and Light, Westport, and Arrowhead areas.
And then do you have to give those guns back to the people that left them in their cars?
Well, the purple one especially, ma'am, if you see that one, I think that one should be returned because it's purple. So yes, if these members were able to legally possess these firearms and they had paperwork and all of that stuff, absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
And that was going to be my question, is what percentage of those were stolen before, or is that data available?
That information is not available to me, but I can find that out for you, President Tolbert, absolutely.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Great job, and
Yeah.
thank you, because I know that's a big problem here, so thank you for.
And to my colleagues, Major Scott Simons, Major retired Darren Ivey, and Major Paul Luster Pryor at Metro, thank you very much for the cooperation. Thank you.
We're
job.
proud
Thank
that you
you.
can cooperate like
Yes.
that. That's
Absolutely. We work together. Thank you.
And I have to tell you, Major, I heard great things about you at the FOP charity event.
Oh, boy.
Everybody had nothing but great things to say about you and your work and in your heart and what you do. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that, ma'am.
Yes.
Have a good day.
You too.
I just want to add that, when we see events in our entertainment districts and around Arrowhead, the reason why I didn't bring this up is many people are carrying firearms and they get to the venue and they're not allowed to bring the firearm into the venue,
Right.
which mandates that they leave them in their vehicles, which makes this a high target area when this kind of situation occurs. And obviously when we have people coming from all over the region that comes to an Arrowhead game and their windows are smashed and their belongings and sometimes even their guns are missing, it just doesn't make us look very good as a city. And I think that's why we put a lot of effort into this as we're coming up on the playoff games and we saw some things working. And I just wanted the board to know that when we have our crime meetings and our discussions, we talk about these trends and what we can do and what we can do to prevent further occurrences. Of course, catching people is important, but we'd really be happy if they just stopped. And obviously, as Kari said, that we have a huge issue with people just leaving things in their car unsecured, and anybody can walk by and see what's in there, and that makes it tough for us, really, and the tough dynamics to try and prevent further crimes. But we're doing what we can to try and provide a safe environment for everybody.
And that completes my report, and I'll answer any questions.
Question? All right. Thank you, Deputy Chief True. Executive Services Bureau Deputy Chief Doug Nehemiah.
Good morning. My items are under tab A. This morning I only have 3 items, and then I'm going to give a radio update, and we'll have a presentation by our fleet operations unit. But item A is a budget transfer on our police grant funds. I'd request a transfer of $28,110 from personnel services in the amount of $26,734 to contractual services and $1,376 to commodities. All those transfers are noted on the second page of item A, and I'd request your approval. And on the side, it's all transferred within our traffic division grants.
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved in second. All in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. Ayes have it.
Item B is our department wireless services. The Board of Police Commissioners approved a 1-year contract in February of 2021 for the department's wireless services utilizing the National Association of State Procurement. The new contract will be March 1, 2022 through February the 28th of 2023. The total cost for this wireless services, which include all of our cell phones and air cards, is a total of $422,010.84. And what this is like when we say air cards, this is what runs all of our mobile terminal data in the car. The computers that are in the police cars have a wireless air card that makes those operate. So I would request your approval for this contract.
I move approval.
Second.
You've heard the motion, heard the question. All in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. Ayes have it.
Item C is a modification to the HIDA Investigative Support Center. The modification of this grant is in the amount of $72,090.01. The award amount is now $356,935.99. The reason for this modification is the sergeant position was eliminated and a call taker position was added at the HIDA location. The new position is compensated at a lower rate as well as a car is no longer needed. So I would request your approval.
I move approval.
Second.
All in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed by no. Ayes have it.
Thank you. Just to give a radio update, I've been given radio updates as we've gone along. We have 2 vendors that we're talking to. We've met with the second vendor and also met with the city manager's office. I think what we've learned is we obviously need radios. I think everybody knows we need radios. I think Mr. Platt has got with all of the division or the directors of all the different departments within the city, and they're learning how many radios they need, and they're learning maybe they don't need as many as they thought they might have needed, which is also a good thing as far as cost. So we are in the process. We now have radios in hand at our radio shop to test. We will do those tests. Then we will put those radios out with officers in the field so that we can test those. And then once that test is completed, we'll bring those back and we'll have a presentation to the command staff, the board, and everyone once those tests are completed, and we can give the results of that and go forward and move forward with a process of which radio we're going to go with. I know the fire department's completed theirs.
So do we have a commitment for the amount that we were talking about for those radios?
I don't know that we have the commitment for it yet, but it's been discussed with city finance, but I don't think it's locked down.
So Mayor, was that part of our budget, or is that something that's over and above the budget that the city is talking about?
Current plan for funding it, to the extent it is funded, would be outside of the normal budget and would be in the American Rescue Plan discussion. Question I'd have is, fire department was able to receive grants to fund some of the radio purchases. I assume, have we looked into those yet? And is that available for law enforcement?
But in talking with them, I think we discussed this before, theirs is a long running process that they got theirs, and we don't have a grant available for that particular item. I will say this, I've had really good discussions with the finance department at the city about, I don't want to see this happen again. This happened 10 years ago. It's happening now. I don't want to see it happen again 10 years from now for a whole new command staff, a whole new board, a whole different group at the city at finance, and come up with a solution of where we're not needing to come up with this kind of money every 10 years when those radios are over, because that's a huge financial hit for everyone. So we're working on a plan in which we can get the police radios, and then, as I said, phase in radios each and every year instead of taking a large amount of money to do a one-time purchase and then wait 10 years and come up with this millions of dollars again. So I'm encouraged by those talks that we've had with the finance department. So, and the companies themselves. I've discussed that with the companies themselves, that we need to have a plan in place or a process in place where we're not spending this kind of money every 10 years and we can do it each and every year. Any other questions about the radio system? Okay, I'm going to have Captain Holcomb and Manager Crawford come up from our Fleet Operations Unit and talk about our fleet. I think you will be very surprised on how much work gets done on a daily basis just to keep officers and others getting to where they need to be.
Morning, I'm Tim Holcomb.
Morning.
The Colonel just stole my thunder. I was going to say, I've been assigned to the fleet unit for about a month and a half now, and I guess I took it for granted what they do out there as far as work miracles. Sometimes what we have, you'll see by the presentation, sometimes we're limited on our parts and such, but they do what they do to keep the fleet operation running, and which is very crucial. As you know, the police officers don't have cars and they can't go to calls. So I'm going to turn over to the expert. Mark's been on the department about 27 years. 4 years of that has been assistant to manager fleet operations. So he's the brains, and he's probably tired of me asking him a bunch of questions already. So
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Have a slide presentation for everyone here. Our main garage is located at 5215 East 27th Street, which is basically 27th Van Brunt, next to the East Patrol. There she is, the old police garage. This building we got into in 1981. This is where our mechanic side is, body shop, parts room, tire room. Our office is upstairs there, the two windows there. In the whole, to the left, there's a whole parking lot full of police cars. Kind of our mission statement, the Fleet Operations Unit's primary function is to maintain the department's fleet in a high state of readiness by maximizing available resources to their fullest. This includes assignment of vehicles based on their intended usage for maximum return and overseeing the department's routine vehicle maintenance program. When fully staffed, we have 20 Fleet Tech 2s. A Tech 2 is a full-blown mechanic that comes to us with 3 to 5 years experience. They have to have their own, to walk in the door to start working on our vehicles. They have to own $10,000 to $15,000 worth of tools. And then they have to keep continuing that tool collection too as the vehicles and everything advances. 6 supervisors. We are a 24-hour shop. So 3 of those supervisors are on the mechanic side. We also have supervisors on our parts room, body shop, and our service station at 1245 Prospect, which we'll cover in a minute. There are 5 Fleet Tech 1s. 4 of them are at the service station. A Tech 1 is basically an entry-level position into mechanics. We also have several that have gone on to the academy. We have one that's going to graduate in March from the academy. But they also run the tow trucks, do the oil changes, gas up the cars, run and get parts for the garage, or kind of a support system for the garage. And then 3 inventory specialists. Those are parts room personnel, 24/7, not 24/7, but 24 hours a day. It's a Monday through Friday position. And then 3 office personnel, the captain, myself, and Gayla, who actually runs the fleet. This is our service station, 1245 Prospect. It's a 1950s gas station. We moved in probably in the 70s. We run our 2 service tow trucks and a service truck out of here. All A services are completed here. All of our vehicles, every 5,000 miles, get some kind of service, an oil change of some sort. An A service is the basic every 5,000 miles. Basically, we check the lights, suspension, brakes, everything. We go over the car, have a checklist we go through. Now, 5,000 miles sounds like a lot, but technically in our outlying stations of North Patrol, South Patrol, and Shoal Creek, we will see the same car every 10 to 14 days. And then even the inner city cars, it's once a month. These are pure district cars, enforcement vehicles. They run 24/7 all the time. Again, last week when we had the snow event, we were able to go pull most of our cars out of ditches with our service trucks. I have done this in the past. It's where all the fun is. In service station, the 4 fleet tech ones and a supervisor, 2 tow trucks, 1 service truck. The A services I explained in first echelon repairs are basically your quick light repair, replacing wiper blades, something that can be done real quick, officers in and back on the street, no time flat. We also have some self-serve fuel sites, our South Patrol Division, Metro Division, Show Creek, and we have a KCI fueling site for North Patrol. And through the Fuel Master, where we have the capability to fuel at any city fueling facility, and any city vehicle can go to one of our fueling facilities and fuel there too. Body shop. Our body shop is open Monday through Friday. We have 3 body shop technicians. We're short 1. We should fully staffed. We would have 4 and 1 supervisor. This is everything from minor fender bender to full-blown rebuilds. We maintain everything on our own vehicles. We do not send anything out except for warranty work for our vehicles. Parts room facts. We have to carry quite a lot of inventory in order to maintain the vehicles and keep them on the road. We do try to maintain a 95% fleet readiness. So that means 95% of the fleet is out on the road at all times. But that takes 3 inventory specialists, 1 on each shift, 1 supervisor, and we do a physical inventory every quarter, and we maintain a 0.21% error rate, which is really, really good. This is an example of some of our top parts used in January. We went through 67 batteries, 170 oil filters, 51 spark plugs, 87 wiper blades, 152 tires, and 50 brake rotors. Now,
87 wiper blades, that's an odd number. Don't you get 2 on each car?
well, one could have been a back one too.
Oh, okay, back window, sorry.
Sometimes car get 3. No, we try.
Sorry, Chief, thank you.
We just do the passenger side. Save money. But these are just the enforcement vehicles, stuff we regularly maintain. The mechanic side. 14 automotive techs, 1 tire tech, because we do a lot of tires, so we have a dedicated person, dedicated, to only tires. It also serves as a journeyman position, per se. They can work their way up to a mechanic, and a lot of our mechanics have come from this position. 3 supervisors, 1 on each shift. This site is open 24/7, 365 days a year. We are responsible for the acquisition, maintenance, repair, and disposal of all vehicles owned by the police department. In addition, work is completed on vehicles leased by the department, and we do a lot of metal fabrication projects. We do a lot of special projects from battery rams to training needs used by the academy, just anything to come to us with. We've built many of the inside of tactical vans, the benches, the seats, the racks, everything. Fleet facts. Our fleet averages around 1,026 total units. This is all vehicles, support vehicles, trailers, ATVs, motorcycles. Anything you see an officer in, we maintain. This also includes generators, lawnmowers, tractors, anything with a gas engine they bring in, we try to fix. We usually do fix. Now, the days of the catalog and the going through, looking for parts and looking stuff up is long gone. These vehicles change so much every year that all service manuals are online, which truly increases efficiency. The bulk of our fleet is Ford, but we do have a smattering of every manufacturer just about. For example, the 13 through 19 Explorers were pretty much, each year they advanced some, but in 2020, it's still a Ford Explorer, but it's a completely different vehicle. whole new drivetrain, whole new engine, transmission, bigger. It's just completely different vehicle. Example there of toning, that's not his toolbox. That's another mechanic's toolbox, but this kind of stuff that they need to have and maintain is quite an expense to them. Give you another example of that, our body shop technicians, each paint gun they have is $600, and they need to have at least 3. One for color, one for primer, and one for clear. Frequent job is brake replacement. We go through a lot of brakes. Cars are constantly on the road, a lot of bent wheels. Kansas City streets, we drive over the same streets as everybody complains about, except magnetized about 100. I don't know. It's a lot. But a lot of brakes are replaced along with everything else. The last year, the Crown Vic was 2011. ACPD still has 148 Crown Vics in use today. Manufacturer is only responsible for carrying parts for a vehicle 10 years after its last run. So in 2021, our supply of Crown Vic parts dried up pretty quick. That's not including, 2011 is our latest one. We have 05s, we have 07s, we have 08s. So we had to get pretty creative when we get rid of a vehicle and strip it to get anything from good seat belts to engines, transmission, wheels, all that. Just kind of this slide here, internal salvage parts. I mean, that's a Crown Vic being stripped there, but I mean, I can see an Explorer door. There's 4 radio systems there that will go back to the radio department. Camera systems will be used again. Some rumble sirens on the ground there, a rear bumper to a Charger, several different style rifle racks I can see in there. All this stuff is just a small example of what we have to reuse. It's a money-saving deal, but it's also a necessity. Like I said earlier, we do a lot of special projects. This is one of the vehicles we made for the Academy for training purposes. This shows the amount of work that goes into something like this. That's also time away from working on the vehicles, but it's just a balance of what is needed and what can do and priorities. That's pretty much fleet in a nutshell. Are there any questions?
How long have you been doing this?
Sorry?
How long have you been doing this?
27 years, sir. This is my 27th year. I started as an auto servicer at the service station, towing in cars at midnight, and been doing it ever since. Greatest job ever. Most fun job. It is the most fun job on the fleet. I mean, in the department, fleet is the best job.
You do great work and you keep great inventory.
Yes, sir. We keep buying. Of course, I'd like to extend an invitation to anybody who wants to come out and take a look around. I mean, this is just me spilling it out here real quick, but it is pretty intense. There's a lot of good people that work there, and we just have the pleasure of being in charge of.
Thank you. Is it getting more difficult at all with computer technology and all of that, or is it just something that it's kind of changed over the years, just in fixing and keeping up with the vehicles?
No, it's whenever a vehicle comes in, you know, my check engine light's on, or you have to replace anything, we have OE scanners. So then you ever wonder why that $195 scanner charge is? It takes an hour just to get the thing hooked up, get everything going in it. Cars are basically a rolling computer anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I really would encourage, if anybody has the opportunity, we try to get out there at least once every other week to talk to the folks that work out there, and just like you would take your car somewhere to have it serviced, we have a full group that services this fleet every day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And it is just to go to the back lot also, you'll see what we have to do to keep our Crown Vics running. And that was a big number for me, because we have 148 Crown Vics. I mean, we have as they told me in little stats, we have cars that have 300,000 miles on them that they continue to make run. So we are getting close to having our first 400,000 mile car.
We did top a milestone over the weekend, sir. We
So-
did hit 400,000.
So, but that's what we have to do to keep our fleet going. We do have a large city. We put a lot of miles on cars, and things do happen. So I want to personally thank them. I had no idea until I was in charge of this unit. As Captain Holcomb said, a lot of people in this police department don't realize what goes into keeping our fleet running. So I want to thank them myself.
Thank you.
Well, Captain Hughley, we have some vacancies, so people on TV land
Yes.
are hiring as well. So.
Said we're a lot funny place to work.
You know, that's something that comes from that, though. We've talked about this detention facility officer, as well as folks from fleet. That was originally one of the places that we hired a lot of our recruits. People would come on this job at 18, 19 years old. They would work in those positions, and they would become recruits in our academy. And I think that we've talked about this in smaller groups, that we should really work hard to make that part of our recruitment, is become a DFO, become a person who works at 1245 Prospect, that's doing these A services. And as we just said, we just put a couple of our employees into the academy that worked out at 1245, and now we do need to rehire. But that is a great opportunity for folks to come on this job at a younger age and then be able to transition into law enforcement. I think that concludes Executive Services Bureau report.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Professional Development and Research, Deputy Chief Mike Wood.
Hello again. My information for this bureau is under tab B. I'll start out with a quick academy update. The 173rd entrant officer class will graduate March 24th. There'll be 22 Kansas City recruits from that and 13 recruits from outside agencies. The 174th just started earlier this month, and they're scheduled to graduate on August 18th. They currently also have 22 recruits from KCPD and 10 from outside agencies. As the academy class just started, Channel 41 is going to be doing updates as they progress through, and this was their first installment, and I thought we'd show it.
A story you'll only see here on KSHB 41, what it takes to become a police officer. In this exclusive series of stories, we'll be showing you everything that goes into academy training at the Kansas City Regional Police Academy. Reporter Emma James will follow the newest class of entrant officers throughout the training. She's giving us a look at day one.
Here at the Kansas City, Missouri Regional Police Academy, it's day one of academy training for the 174th entrant officer class. For the next 7 months, they'll be learning everything it takes to be a police officer. For many of them, it's a lifelong goal, and they can't wait to achieve it.
Everybody in this room is going to make mistakes during training. That's why we're here, right?
Class is in session for these 32 entrant officers at the KC Regional Police Academy. The class includes future officers for agencies all around the region. Matthew Sweeting is ready to get to work and start his role as a public servant.
I hope to make a difference, try to change someone's life, try to be a positive influence in communities.
During day one, Major Paul Luster, director of the KC Regional Police Academy, talks to entrant officers about having a growth mindset during training, meaning embracing challenges and learning from failures.
A lot of them, this could be their first real job or the start of a career for them. So I imagine there's a lot of nervousness and wondering what to expect, which is why we're doing what we're doing.
The nearly 7-month training covers a lot of ground, like driving a police car out on the course, learning how to use a firearm, fingerprinting and crime scene investigation, and mental health awareness, just to name a few topics. Not all entrant officers who start here will make it through to the very end. For Sweeting, he's determined to make it to the finish line.
I know I'm going to pass. I'm going to stick it through regardless, no matter what.
Graduation is set for August 18th. In between now and then, KSHB 41 News will be following along with this class of recruits, and we'll be getting an in-depth look at what it takes to be an officer. In Kansas City, Emma James, KSHB 41 News.
If there are no questions, I'll give you an update on the youth services unit. The PAL attendance for January was at 632 kids. There were 17 great and dare graduations in January. There were a total of 38 dare and great classes that were taught at 13 different schools in January, reaching 745 students. The PAL food program continues to provide enough food to feed at least 50 children a day. And the final two slides show upcoming events at the youth services, in the youth services division. I hope you guys are receiving those updates month to month via email. If not, please let me know. And as your schedule allows, I hope to see you at some of these events. And this one here is the big fundraiser, one of the big fundraisers that's coming up this weekend. If there are no further questions, I have one item on the consent agenda, is the procedural instruction reporting case clearances. And if there are no questions, I would recommend approval.
Can I
That's
ask
under-
questions about that?
That's under what tab
Oh,
again?
sorry.
B as in boy.
So and maybe this is one of those we never resolve, but I mean, the change would make it so a clearance for us is I guess, referral to prosecutors for charges or something of that sort. And the current process is what? So what's case clearance now and what are we changing it to?
If it's got to be cleared by arrest, where one suspect is arrested, and has to be charged and turned over to the court system for prosecution or adjudication.
So is the change then that if there are no charges filed by the prosecutor, then that could still be cleared under, i.e. the police department's completed its side of work?
Yes, I think that's correct, because we made the initial arrest, so.
And I will assume, perhaps correctly, perhaps incorrectly, that particularly the Jackson County Prosecutor's Office may seek clearance in a different way, or we don't know.
I can't answer how, it's all through the same system, so I'd think it'd have to be fairly close and consistent.
But our definition is from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That's where we take this. This is not ours. This is by federal standards.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's a federal standard for prosecutors. I guess what I'm telling you, Mayor, I don't know how they do their numbers, but we have to abide by the FBI's guidance.
Because when it says Department of Public Safety, that'll be a Missouri state regulation and the FBI direction, I think is what you'd suggested.
We report to the state reports to the feds.
Got it. Yep. Okay. I'll move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed by no? Ayes have it.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Officer General Counsel?
Good morning. I rarely get to say good morning.
Morning.
I am under tab F as in Frank. The monthly summary is under the first divider. Second divider is presentation for your review regarding an unarmed private security license. And the second is regarding license under review in a request for placing them on 5-year probation.
I'm going to separate the two. For this Mr. Nelson, first, I'm surprised that it's only a Class C misdemeanor over in Kansas for firing out of a moving vehicle. Okay, understood. But
That was my concern initially as well, but all documentation and information appeared that it was up in the air. They never found the fall down bullets.
okay, so he's celebrating rather than trying to. Who knows?
I think it was more in a threatening manner. It was in
Okay.
result of some threats that occurred. He got in the car. He knew there had been an
You've told me enough. I don't think he needs a license.
Oh, I agree.
Neither do I.
So,
Move to uphold.
yep, second.
All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no? Ayes have it. To uphold. All right. That's one. The next one is the probation.
I'd move to uphold this as well.
Second.
Moving to second, all in favor by sign of aye.
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 All opposed by no. Ayes have it.
Thank you. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Office of Community Complaints update.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning. Moving good, aren't we?
I don't have a formal report. We'll be reporting in either March or April at that board meeting regarding we'll do a presentation of our annual report. We'll provide updates on current projects. Also, we'll be giving an update on the effectiveness of the body-worn camera in terms of complaint investigations, and also some recent opportunities for the OCC to get involved with some school-based mediation, de-escalation, conflict resolution training has been made available to us. So we'll also give an update on that as well. This morning, I just want to come before you just to share some information regarding badges in baseball. It was held on February the 12th of this year. Unfortunately, and let me just go ahead and get out there, I was unable to attend. I was.
You got there.
I got. It was at the
Exactly.
end, but I missed the bulk of the presentation. But one thing that I can say, I was thoroughly pleased to see the amount of cars in the parking lot upon my arrival and the number of kids funneling out of the facility. So it was definitely a good time had by all. This is our 8th year of doing badges in baseball. And from our somewhat humble beginnings in the gymnasium at Northeast High School, we were able to relocate to the Urban Youth Academy a number of years ago. So we're especially pleased by that. The event has grown over the years. This year's participation, we had about 50 youth participated in the event. Many of them had been participants in the event since its inception 8 years ago. We had about 20 to 25 members, both sworn and civilian, from the department participate. Also of note, I just want to give a special consideration and recognition of Major Dan Haley, been a adamant supporter of this event and, for a number of years. And I just want to make sure that I say thank you to him publicly for always being available to come out to Badges of Baseball. And also Chief Rick Smith has also made a very concerted effort to support this event over the term of his tenure. So I just also wanted to publicly thank Chief Smith for making conditions available for officers to be able to attend this event. Just also, and this is just a couple of photos. I missed the foot race between our mayor and the youth, but it just speaks volumes when you have our electeds and our public servants to come out and participate and talk with these kids. And when I got there, that's who I asked, so how was it? And the kids were excited. They had a good time. A couple of them said they beat the mayor in a foot race. I thought that was particularly funny. But it was just really just a good time had by all. So I just want to publicly thank first the board for supporting this event, also members of the department, also for our community partners that came out. We had a number of volunteers from the community just to come out and to assist with the drills and just to lend a hand in the conversations whenever possible. So that's Officer Grubb and the executive director of the Urban Baseball Academy, Youth Academy, I'm sorry, Darwin Penny. And the gentleman to the right, that's Chris Evans, who it was his idea to come up with this event. So we're just really thankful. We're really blessed that we're able to continue this event. We hope to expand it in coming years. Again, we just want to thank everybody for their constant support and participation of this event. And it's my understanding, of course, me getting there late, that over the years when Chief Smith has been able to attend the event, the organizer said, well, he never gets a T-shirt. So they just wanted to make sure that they So again, that's all that I have. We'll be looking forward to more extensive and in-depth reporting from OCC activities in the coming months. Thank you very much.
Just a second. When you do your next report, whenever that is, I'd like to know the reaction to the new website, if that's been helpful and how it changes the way that we interact with the community. Thank you.
On Badgers and baseball, briefly, I want to also commend you for being such a part of this effort for years. It was impressive how often so many people have come back year after year. That's to be commended, and our young people appreciate that. I also commend Chief Smith for speaking to the young people too. It's, you know, they got the foot race with me, and some of them beat me, but it's not every day they get to talk to the police chief and all these other folks who are just spending time with them that day, and all of our officers, of course. So it means a lot. And I saw those smiles on kids' faces when they were leaving too. And it's really was a great event.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are going to have public comment. We have about 8 people on the list. Please adhere to the 2 minutes. It's on the board, and we want to hear everyone. And so have your comments ready. And when the 2 minutes is out and you hear this, please give up the mic and the podium. And is that Stelnuck? And Cheryl Ferguson, you'll be up right after Anna.
Am I on the mic here?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Anna Stelmach, really close, by the way. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and local therapist in private practice, and I felt compelled to come here today due to recent events. Last time I was here was May of last year, and I talked about the fight or flight response and how it needs to be considered during high-risk situations, even routine traffic stops to prevent further escalation. Since then, several fatal officer-involved shootings have occurred, so I see that no one listened to me. Besides you, Major Mills, thanks for approaching me after. So I do understand that it must be really difficult to address crime in our city. However, clearly what we are doing isn't working. The number of homicides, as was mentioned, continue to grow, while many of those remain unsolved. And as a note for that, the clearance rate thing is pretty confusing because UCR and NIBRS have 2 different definitions of clearance rates. But and I also recommend that your website with the unsolved homicides is updated. But anyway, so don't officers want to lessen the load? Wouldn't it be wise to work towards prevention? So why aren't we investing in programs that are already working, like Aim for Peace, a program well respected by community members? In fact, a similar program in St. Louis attributes a 25% decline in potential homicides to their violence interrupters just in last year. So even if a program like Aim for Peace is funded by the city, wouldn't it be in KCPD's best interest to advocate for these types of groups? We need you to listen to the community. We need you to bring in a new chief who's open to prevention and not just someone who Brad Lemon brings you. That means, yes, reconsidering your budget. In mental health, to prevent the negative effects of adverse childhood experiences, early intervention is key. This could be as early as assisting a pregnant woman to leave an abusive relationship. We intervene before the violence even has a chance to begin. In looking to those most negatively impacted by community violence and crime and demanding what's wrong with you, we instead could inquire what happened to you and how can we help. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Ferguson. And will be followed by Matthew Moore.
I'm not even sure where to begin. But one thing I would like to do is start off with thanking you, Dawn. I have seen you coming out to meetings. I have seen you trying to engage with the community. I have not seen that at all from Wagner, but he is readily to always be a cheerleader for Chief Smith, who has had the worst rate of homicides of any chief. That means he has not engaged in doing anything but protecting the police force and not protecting the citizens. So I thank you for your efforts. I would also invite you. I'll go hand in hand with you. I will make sure that we have security, but get to those people that are scared of the police. If you guys don't think that there is nothing but tumultuous fear anytime you see those red and blues behind you, you are sorely mistaken. So to think that all you're doing, all I've been listening to for the 2 years that I've been here is hearing a regurgitation of what he says. I have been watching the Missouri State Highway Patrol giving a regurgitation of what Bacina says wherever he's gone. They are not investigating anything. And Malcolm Johnson's case alone should prove that, because the story that we got from them was that Malcolm presented presented the escalation. But the truth of the matter is that he was scratching a lottery ticket and turned around to 2 guns in his face. How can we trust anybody when all we see are liars?
Thank you. Matthew Moore? And it'll be followed by Rachel Thomas.
My name is Matthew Moore. Jesus Christ is Lord. Thank you for this time. I appreciate you all on the board for your indulgence. The KCPD is asking for a $37 million budget, which will most likely be approved. Does anyone on this board know how much of this money is going towards officer de-escalation training? We don't send a firefighter into a burning building without training and life-saving equipment. We don't put medics in the ER unless they are qualified, mentally and emotionally prepared to deal with the trauma and the bloodshed. Board members, would you want your 21 to 33-year-old sons and daughters going into continuous escalated situations with almost no de-escalation training? It just doesn't work. Hot heads make for trigger-happy fingers. That's dangerous for my community, and that's dangerous for these officers. How do we keep expecting 21 to 33-year-olds to go into intense, escalated, and violent situations without any de-escalation training? It's because the chief has willingly disregarded the police officers' mental health and completely ignored the public's physical health, despite entreaties and supplications from our community. 2017, Kansas City spent well over $100,000 of taxpayer money on a national search for a qualified police chief. In order to derail an investigation against himself, Brad Lemon of the Fraternal Order of Police smuggled Rick Smith into this position. How can we ensure that the bully tactics and subterfuge employed by the Fraternal Order of Police don't derail us now? Rick Smith and Brad Lemon have a long history going back to before they were sergeants together. They covered up for each other then, and they do it to this day. With Rick Smith leaving, isn't it time for Brad Lemon to go as well? The Fraternal Order of Police needs to be stripped of the power it wields in protecting corrupt officials and dangerous police officers. A self-serving union should never have so great an influence over our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Thomas, followed by Brent Hunter.
Say his name. Cameron Lamb. Cameron Lamb, say his name. Cameron Lamb.
I can't decide which speech I should use, but I'm going to go with this one. BOPC, what's my age? I think you already know what we're going to say. I know you won't do anything about it. We told you what was happening in our communities under Rick Smith in the last BOPC public comments, and nothing happened. You carried on talking about the importance of seatbelts. How dare you? You brushed off the fact that Cameron Lamb's family had to appear just to successfully contact and tell the chief of police that Cameron Lamb was not the bad guy dead within minutes. And you let him talk about anything else? We have to be the ones to shove his face in the violence he made. Rick Smith should be perp walked out of this office for excessive force, obstruction of justice, and excessive force and past crimes, and you know it. Instead, you care about your career. I stood on 10th and Harrison the day after the mayor on Facebook Live said the budget was investing in protecting the houseless. I watched park rangers and KCBD tear apart the only shelter of one of the most resilient and vulnerable citizens of our city. I'm still trying to figure out on what grounds. They were given 48 hours to vacate or lose their belongings they had. How were they supposed to move everything? When? Where can they move? And don't tell me the emergency shelters. I know activists have seen people outside of a shelter closed for the night.
Thank you.
Cameron Lamb, say his name. Cameron Lamb. Cameron Lamb, say his name. Cameron Lamb.
Steve Young will follow Brent Hunter.
Hi, I'm Brent Hunter. I'm the market head for Aetna National Accounts Public and Labor. I represent from Illinois to Colorado. I want to thank you for the opportunity, one, to serve your retirees, and also the opportunity to quote your active. And disappointed in the outcome with staying with where you are with Blue Cross, but I also understand change is a difficult path too. I would ask that, some of the things that as we go forward, as we look at the opportunity to have a finalist presentation, to be able to tell our story. I think the committee, the benefits committee, does a great job. They were pressed. We were pressed. Originally, I was going to decline to quote because of the short time frame that we had. And I also want to respect that we weren't able to offer after the best and final request that was put in. We had sweetened the pot a little bit, but we weren't able to honor that, and I want to respect that too. But as you saw, we had $1.4 million in savings. In addition to that, one of the things that wasn't illustrated was the 2%. While it was illustrated 2% savings on the dental, if we had the medical, what does that mean? What does that mean to the active and the workforce? That means $720,000 on a $36 million spend. That wasn't calculated into that. Those dental benefits are passed directly on for the actives. That could have been additional savings in that overall model. Again, it was quickly done. Best intent was at heart with Mr. Smith and his team and the benefits team, but we didn't get that opportunity to explain that, which we normally do in all the markets I represent, to have a best and final or a finalist presentation. So this is my 2-minute finalist presentation. Want to thank you all and thank you for allowing us to serve your retirees. Thank you.
Thank you.
The last thing I'll leave you, since I didn't hear the tick, is in our program, we had a program included, which was the first responders program, where the active, those 21-year-olds that I heard earlier, get to talk to peer-to-peer, a peer-to-peer solution from an EAP solution, dealing with things like we saw last week with the 6-year-old death in that house. So those things they can address, because those are things that we hopefully never have to deal with. So thank you. I am a grad from Center High School, so I know a lot of my people are here, as well as my Ruskin earlier was my brothers and sisters. So
Thank you.
thank you. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you. Steve Young, followed by Doug Schaefer.
Steve Young, Friday Night Protest. I'm pretty sure a lot of y'all have already seen my face before. You see it every Friday. It's a well-known fact the crime police deal with is driven by poverty, lack of opportunity, and disinvestment in the communities they're policing. But they trick the people into believing that if we have a bloated police budget, that cops must be keeping us safe, right? $270 million worth of safety. That all depends on who you ask. $270 million, would that have kept Ryan Stokes safe? How about Donnie Sanders? Or what about Cameron Lamb? Or even more recent, did $270 million keep Sean Wilson safe? Even while Sean was in the middle of a mental health crisis, $270 million couldn't keep him safe. Remember, your taxes paid for that. It paid for that murder. 40 hours of CIT training couldn't save Sean Wilson that night, February the 12th. Ain't that right, Rick Smith? So I asked, where's the people's budget to rid the criminals from within KCPD? Do we get $270 million so we can get rid of the criminals like Pritchard, Brumman, Blaine Newton, Dylan Pfeiffer, William Thompson, Matthew Neal, and McQuillan? So where's our budget to clean up that mess? How do we keep them off our streets and out of our neighborhoods that they don't live in. The point I'm making is $270 million budget doesn't stop crime. All it does is put marginalized communities more at risk to be terrorized by a system that never cared. When we know we have the largest gang and criminal organization in Kansas City, and they go by the name of KCPD. That's all I got.
Thank you. Thank you. Doug Schaefer will be followed by Ron Hunt, will be our last public comment.
You know me by now. Doug Schaefer, almost 33 years in Kansas City, raised my 4 sons here, member of Community Christian Church. I'm going to preface by saying that what I'm about to have to say and what others have said is a symptom of the fact that we don't control this police board. Mayor Lucas is our only elected representative on this board. So more squared tonight is taking the first step toward the political undoing of the situation. St. James United Methodist Church, 6 p.m., 1,000 people there, promising to get local control of this police department back. I was about to let Chief Smith fade into retirement without further comment, and then I heard the news last month. Oh boy, the assassin of my former Hogan Prep College student, Cameron Lamb, wasn't just in prison after his conviction. He was also on the KCPD payroll while in prison. In life, we get what we tolerate. Board, how do you tolerate such profound disrespect for the family and friends of Cameron Lamb, for the law-abiding citizens of Kansas City, for the good apples in the police department? If you wonder about my tone, it's RESPECT for the 400,000 of my fellow Kansas Cityans who would be appalled to know that the chief paid the respect of paydays to this convict. Do you want the record of your tenure on the board to show that you conducted business as usual and allowed Chief Smith to retire in due time? Do you want the rest of the police department to understand that they will not be held to account for misdeeds by the head of the department or this board, not even after prosecution by the district attorney, conviction by jury, and sentencing by a judge? The record shows that we have all paid for this lack of accountability to the tune of at least $9.7 million over the last 7 years. You realize, don't you, that you are defunding the police? How many PAL events? How many crisis intervention trainings? How many department social workers? How many new cadets might have been hired with that money? Mayor Lucas, as my lone chosen representative on this board, I appeal to you, stop with the political calculus, take this board into executive session, and move to remove the chief. Dare the board chair not to second the move. Bishop Tolbert, are you going to go along to get along with Governor Parson? What about taking the example of Jesus, who might turn over these tables in front of you and take a whip to clean house? And you ladies in your protective coating of pale skin, how about a ride on the east side, a walk along the 41 block of College Avenue, anything to make you uncomfortable enough to wonder what your purpose on the governor's board of overseers might be? Can you even imagine what it might mean to be responsible for a police department that really protected and served us rather than covered up for its own? Until we the people choose this board, up your moral courage and surprise us with action that you can be proud to read about in next month's news.
Ron Hunt.
To the board, good morning. To Chief Smith. You know, we got a problem. We got a problem, Bishop, Mayor. We got a problem. And my angle is just a little bit different. The problem we have, we can't point it to one man. I feel that our problem lies in the academy. In the academy, because somewhere, Bishop, they're training these guys that work the 11 to 7 shift. That's where all the killings take place, Mom. And 11 to 7, there's somewhere in the academy, we need to look at the use of force. You know, I have kind of like pit bulls, and pit bulls, they say that's dangerous dogs, but they're not dangerous dogs. They're dangerous if you train them to be dangerous. And so we have a problem here, Mayor. We really do. We have a problem. It's not Rick Smith. It's the board. It's the board. You guys are accountable for it. You oversee the whole department. The whole department. I can't sit here and say, once Rick retire, who you think's coming after him? We're going to have the same problems 10, 15 years later, going to be blaming them on a chief. It's the board. It's the board. That man called for help. This family called for help for mental health. And I can't trust the police myself. I go there, Bishop, and I find physical evidence. The highway patrol, we can't trust the highway patrol because their trust is based on hearsay. It's based on here. I found stuff. I had to give it to the prosecutor. You follow what I'm saying, Bishop? And so all I'm saying, we got a problem. And to say we don't have a problem, we really have a problem. I'm sorry to say, Bobby King, I cannot hold back the truth. If holding back the truth means friendship with you, I don't need that friendship. I can't sit back and be quiet. That's not my role. I cannot refer anybody to the police department. I cannot do that as a conscious human being. I cannot do it because I do not trust the direction that the police department is going. And I don't mean to disrespect anybody, but I'm telling you the truth. God said, whatever man soweth, he shall reap. We're going to reap this one day. We're going to reap this, and it may not be tomorrow, but one day, man, if we don't get a handle on this, we're going to have a problem in our city.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Holly, you have another.
I apologize. I
General counsel.
overlooked on the second private security company, you voted for placing them on probation for 5 years. There's also a recommendation to revoke the armed licenses of the 2 parties involved in the event and putting their unarmed license on probation for 5 years.
Move to uphold.
Second.
All in favor by sign of aye?
Aye.
All opposed by no? Ayes have it.
Again, I apologize. Thank you for your.
All right, thank you. General discussion from Chief Smith?
Are we still morning? Are we still good morning?
Yeah.
I have the presentation that we will give the city council on our budget presentation on Thursday, I believe is it 9:40, I think we present. So I just wanted to go through the slides real quick and give the board some ideas. So this is the city slide. So some of these slides are preloaded from the city and we put in our numbers. So this total submitted budget, that includes money that's paid on our behalf. So we'll get through this as we see the numbers differently from what we said publicly, I think in prior meetings and what we see up on the board. And are these year end, Derek? Are these
Fiscal year.
fiscal year? Okay, we
Yes.
got the numbers. Is that right? Or these need to be updated still?
No, these are the ones we just got this morning.
Okay. All right. So again, city slide, we put these in here. They asked for these responses. Next slide. Again, city slide. Well, back up one. This again, a city slide shows the breakdown of where the city puts it. It's a little bit different from us. Like we don't have a management bureau. So it's a little bit different than how we calculated things here, but this is how it's done on the city side.
So what number do we put there?
Pardon me. On the
You
management.
said we put in our numbers on this and we don't have a management bureau, but what's it?
The city does that. So they took their budget number, the police, the overall budget, the 261 or the 269, I believe, and that's how it's broken down by percentage wise.
Okay.
So this is our slide here, major changes and highlights to the budget. So the pay adjustments, it's a step increase for not at the step on their anniversary date, 4% increase for those at the top beginning in May. 3 to 4 academy classes anticipated. We have it funded at 1,232 officers with the budget that was passed. And then on a great note, we get $1 million more for police cars, which we desperately need, as you heard from the state of the fleet. The requested hazard pay was not in the budget that was submitted to the city. Then the requested decision packages that were there were not included, were the radio system, the mobile command radios, and the camera for the helicopters. Next thing is our call. This is our call. So we had almost 1 million calls to our 911 call center in 2021. Of course, we are working right now and improving the diversity and recruitment. Obviously, is a big thing right now. Hopefully, we hire more people into the police department. And I think it's important to our citizens, as the survey says. As you can see, there are some of the strategies that we're working on to work on our goal of reducing violent crime. Next page. I wanted to include these last two charts. This is the non-fatal shootings. We had a 21% decrease last year. You can see it mapped, and I thought it would be good for the city to see the districts and the maps of where we're having our most of our violence. 130 people that didn't get shot from the previous year. I think that was a wonderful statistic. And our homicides, we had a 12% reduction, 22 fewer victims. And I think, as the board heard or reported, we were one of 6 major cities out of 66 that had 10 or few less victims in a So I wanted to add that for the presentation to the city. So that's what we have going for the city. There's a couple things that we want to talk about in there. The facilities, we talked about having the facilities taken out of the budget. They were put into the budget, but fully funded. There's a special provision for security at 18th and Vine, $522,000. That goes, I guess, just to that. The COPS grant for the 18 officers is not included in the budget, which I kind of understand that. I don't know how if we can get to full staffing by May 1st, then we could execute that grant, but they did not include it in the budget. We had 176 removed from a current COPS grant that usually is passed through from the city, which we're still working on to see, hey, how is that working? And then we had a bulletproof vest grant of up to a $75,000 match that also was not funded. So we're working through this. The other item that probably we thought was curious, not funded, but no fund for detention food, $36,000 for food for people that are incarcerated, again, not funded. So we're working through these things as we go through the budget process, but I wanted the board to know that's the presentation I'll make at the city on Thursday.
So I had a question, and that was, I don't know if this is for you, Chief, or for the mayor, but in the transmittal letter that was sent out, I know you had said about the 4% increase in pay. And then in the transmittal budget, I see here, it talks about raises and hazardous pay for our staff. And it says the city is pursuing a request in cooperation with the board for the funding of the hazardous pay for the state relief fund. Is that not in the budget? And I wasn't aware that, I guess, we as a board I thought we were asking the city, not the state. So I guess I'm a little lost on that. So.
Yep, the city took your request and asked the state for more money, as you might expect. So we've actually asked the state to cover almost everything that we would pursue, both in hazard pay and actually even radios. We have money, I think it's fair to say, that's sequestered likely for radios. There is not additional money sequestered for a hazard pay amount out of our American Rescue Plan funds. The state still has several $1 billion of money, so we submitted another request to them for them.
So does that mean no raises?
No raises, you say?
Yeah, I mean, or was that in the budget? I guess.
Oh, the raises were in the
They're
budget.
in the budget. Yeah.
Okay, they're in the budget. Just the hazardous pay part has not officially been in them.
I think the way the city would see it is, I mean, that would be up to the discretion of the department. And I think in one of the letters, it suggests that there is money to fund what the board would want of those two, but we've made I would personally want raises, but nevertheless, we've made an additional request for hazard pay then from the state itself.
Well, and I just wasn't aware that it says on here that the board was in cooperation with that.
We wouldn't make it without your request. So we said we've had that request and we forwarded that to the governor's office.
Any questions?
All right. Approval of open session minutes from January 20th, 25th, and February 8th. Can we do them all three at one time?
Yes.
I move approval for all three.
Second.
Second, all in favor by sign of aye.
Aye.
All opposed by no. Ayes have it. David Kenner,
I've got nothing at this time.
Mayor Lucas.
I have 3 points, 2 communications that I've sent to the board already relating to non-cooperation on animal control investigations, the other relating to putative non-cooperation on, I believe, homeless adjacent enforcement. I'll reference the animal control point first. There's letters sent to the presiding judge of municipal court that represented that the police department would not assist in warrant execution on certain animal control issues. I don't have extensive knowledge in this area, but this did come to me through the city administration. Since 1967, I believe in the city's code of ordinances, there's been a direction to the Board of Police Commissioners or an agreement to cooperate on the execution of warrants as it relates to animal cruelty and other such criminal actions. I'll note often there's a nexus of even domestic abuse related to those situations. In the last probably 1.5 to 2 years, the city entered into a contractual relationship with the Kansas City Pet Project and South Kansas City to handle the entirety of our animal control services. It is the view of those of us at the city that that does not modify the Animal Control Services Department in any way. So we would expect any contractual obligations to stay the same. What's more, I read under Chapter 84 that the city can actually create its own animal control police department, let's say. And so therefore, we would always have to look to the police department to help us in warrant execution. It'd be my request that we not, or actually that we discuss whether we look to terminate all assistance in animal control enforcement and instead have some conversation on some of the deeper issues that are raised. I had a good conversation, and I'll give him credit, with Captain Graves over the weekend, who explained some of the concerns I think that have that he and the department have brought to the city, including the fact that our officers don't typically write the warrant applications that will go to municipal court. And of course, then there are just the very real public safety challenges of entering property based upon certain issues relating to it. I would hope that we could work through it in a way that the city has for the last 55 years or so with the police department to ensure that we continue to hold some position in connection with this fairly important part of enforcement. And of course, animal control violations continue to be a violation of the Code of Ordinances. To keep things running, and I guess we can either have that board discussion. If there's certain legal advice that's the basis of this, I'd love to hear it, and we can also discuss that in closed session if wanted. I would hope, though, next time we have that discussion, that before there is a communication that's sent to the court, and perhaps there were those discussions with the city that this is coming. I would have liked to know that we were looking to terminate that assistance, and I think my colleagues would as well. In relation to enforcement of or surrounding homeless encampments and others, I have a clear view that perhaps some of my colleagues on the elected side disagree with, which is that city council actually only speaks through ordinances. There have been representations from the department that due to current conversations at City Hall, I guess, and administrative regulations being considered by the city manager, which don't apply to me or my colleagues, that the department may refrain from taking certain enforcement actions without the purported permission of the city itself. I don't know how you actually get the permission of the city unless city council shows up, has a vote as to each infraction in a public park. Be my direction that if there's something that's a violation of the Code of Ordinances and a constituent or city staff calls with a concern, that the department has a duty under Chapter 84 to respond to that concern if it's a lawful violation. And I would hope that we would continue to do that so that there isn't a situation, as I think at least my letter suggested, where we have constituents who may call 911 or actually the non-emergency line for some level of support, and they're told, well, there's nothing we can do because there is something that can be done, and short of city council passing an ordinance that says we are abolishing all laws as it relates to tenting on public property, among other items, then I think there is some action that can be taken. And I would ask then that we basically suggest, as we've done in prior discussions, that if there's a law on the books that's subject to enforcement, that the department continues to enforce based upon that, short of some law that removes that obligation at issue.
I'd like to respond a little.
Please.
First, with the animal control issue, I am concerned that someone that's not in law enforcement is writing a warrant application. I think we need legal advice to say if that's allowed, but I haven't done the research, so I don't know. And perhaps the city has done the research and just didn't give it to us. But I'd be very concerned about someone not trained in law enforcement issues to write a request for a warrant to be issued to go into someone's home and take their animal. And that just cannot happen, I don't think, under the current situation. But you show me the legal basis for that, and I'm willing to reconsider. As for the houseless encampments, there was one in the front of City Hall, which our officers were told by you and others not to remove them. And we can't have a situation where when they're on the front yard of City Hall, we don't remove them. But if they're someplace else not quite so public, we do. We have to be consistent. So if you want them removed, then you need, when they come to the front of City Hall, allow them to be arrested or whatever. And as you know, during the protests in 2020, there were people that were arrested different parts of the city, and the city just dismissed those charges. And so we need a statement from the city, and if it has to be through the city council, then they can do an ordinance, or from you, but something public that says, we're going to enforce these rules about encampments across the city, or we're not going to enforce them across the city, but we can't do them selectively.
I'd argue respectfully, there's no basis in law for that, though, right?
Do it across the city?
There's no basis in law for us to require the city to pass an additional ordinance when something is already an ordinance violation. Let's use, for example, DUI enforcement. There are many cases dismissed. There are many cases not dismissed. It doesn't mean that just because there's a different treatment sometimes in the ultimate outcome for the defendant, that the law in a way becomes extinguished. I'm sure there are some who would want to say you shouldn't charge somebody for a crime because some people are able to pay for lawyers, something of that sort, and they get out of it, let's say, while others don't. I mean, the different treatment as it exists in different places is just something that's natural to American law generally, I would think.
But you told us not to. You told us not to arrest those people on the front lawn of City Hall. And how can you do that and then tell us, but go over here and arrest those people?
So I would say a few things, again, based upon the law as it exists. First, the communication that I had, I was there with the chief and others, actually Captain Graves at the time, and a number of folks. I think the primary reason that we didn't want to take action that day in a conversation was because we did not want substantial conflict between everybody who was there. We had a councilwoman there who was wanting or threatening to get arrested. We had a number of activists that I think actually wanted to have a recorded dramatic situation. That was not a, we love to ignore laws. It was a, we don't want to have to drag out a 75-year-old city councilwoman on camera, which I think would make this department look bad in the entire city. That was that particular situation. But as it relates to laws, I mean, I almost don't understand what the solution you seek is.
I want you to tell me that we are free to enforce the laws.
You're always free to enforce the laws.
Okay.
Nobody ever asks me to arrest somebody for a given infraction in one part of the city versus the other, right? We passed a law. I know there are some who don't want us to enforce certain laws, right? We had that conversation with the Jackson County prosecutor, for example. She came and said, I'd like you to execute your enforcement of these laws in a way different than you are doing now.
Right.
This board said at the time, we're going to actually just look at Missouri statute, see what violates statute, And if you choose not to prosecute, you choose not to prosecute. It's my view that in the event that there is a constituent somewhere who calls and says, I have an issue with this, we can't make decisions based on, I'm concerned a councilman or a mayor or anyone might be upset with what we do later if it's actually a real violation or infraction. And I think going forward, that is an important path for us to go. During the protest era, we weren't actually enforcing all of our protest regulations. I actually still think they're valuable. And I know that there's a change in kind of American law and policy, but they're still on the books and there's still laws that I think do need to be enforced. What we shouldn't do is just say, well, constituent, ask these other people kind of what they think, and then they need to pass another law that says something is illegal. That's where my concern would be.
I'm not asking for another law. I'm saying I want the city to say, yes, we think you should enforce the laws of this city. And it sounds to me like the city says yes some of the time and no some of the other time. The other thing I worry about is enforcing moving these encampments. I've seen the litigation, and we have to figure out, and the city has to fund, how do we inventory all of their belongings and store them somewhere and all the other things that, and someone mentioned today, how are they supposed to get their things moved right away? I mean, we don't have the mechanism to do all the things we have to do and avoid litigation. And obviously people today criticized us for being in litigation and have to pay. Well, if that causes litigation, it'll be expensive.
That's understood. The city would typically be a defendant in that litigation too, but I would note that our officers, myself and others do visit with business owners, residents throughout the city. The Indian Creek Trail has been one example of late, where they say that there are sustained and consistent encampments. I think there is some question as to when can some action be taken. And I have the view, and city council, if they have a different view, can vote an ordinance out that abolishes the criminal infraction of tenting in that space or on private property. But I have a view that if there's someone who calls and says, this is an issue, it's next to my restaurant, it's next to something, then they should be able to actually call and have some action taken. That to me is just fundamentally how it is. And to the extent the city wants to change it, then the city actually just needs to rewrite its code of ordinances, which perhaps they should do. Now, on the animal control point, I guess I'm at a bit of a loss.
Before you change that animal control.
What's that?
Before you change that on the homeless or houselessness, are there warning tickets given prior to the removal? Because I'd like to see, if people know that there is a progressive process that says, we see you, we know you're here, we're trying to give you a chance to move, rather than just, we set a date and we're going to go in and just move everybody. Is there anything in the ordinance or the law now that talks about warning tickets before a removal?
Sometimes I get too doctrinal, and I'll try to avoid that. The answer to your question is there is a process by which people receive warnings. However, that is not an ordinance-based process. And if I'm just doing bright line rules, the bright line rule is if you're violating an ordinance, then you can be moved. Now, there have been additional discussions and steps from, I think, those in the Parks Department primarily, but others, to give, actually one of our commenters noted, she's since left, 48 hours of a warning to say, please, you really can't be here longer. And then after that, there will be some sort of movement action. But I comment that's not adversarial, at least on this issue. There are actually just constituents and even some employees of the city who are concerned about harm that may be sustained if they're the only ones out there when they're saying, you all need to go. And we've seen criminal violations there. Your point's very well taken, Commissioner Dean, that in the past, we have not used, I think, perfect consistency or procedures. I would argue the city has largely never done that, actually. But I do think that there are ordinances on the books. They need to be enforced. There are criminal threats that arise in some of these situations. And I think to the extent that we do have a request for action, this department does have the exclusive authority to actually take on those threats because we don't have park rangers with the ability to arrest and any of these other items. Although the city tried to create that, and I think we got our wings clipped in large part because the board said you can't actually take that level of authority.
That's not, Mayor. I think our memorandum of understanding says the park board can absolutely and the park rangers can enforce on parkland.
And they write tickets and
Yes.
arrest.
Yes. That's the authority of the MOU we gave them.
All right, then that's
Correct. They can exclusively, the MOU, tenting, trespassing, all that they have right within the MOU. They have every right to arrest for that.
And they are, so would our argument now be to the writer who says, I called the non-emergency line for the police about an illegal infraction. Can we at least, rather than telling that person there's nothing we can do, I guess refer them to the park ranger service?
I'd be happy to. I don't know who this person was that the call taker, whatever, took it. Our position has been, since we've had the discussion at City Hall, is that, we're going to have a uniform policy across the city. I think that policing in another way, Mayor, looks at bad. I think it looks bad for the professionalism of the organization and for the city itself. I don't think we pick pockets. And to your point about DUI, I understand what happens at post stops, but we don't tell our police officers, do not go enforce at Westport or do not go and enforce at Power and Light. We do not do that. And to make your example or analogy correct, we would have to do that first. And we don't do that. We don't tell our officers this is off limits or that's on limits or that. We tell our officers, you go out and police the city. And all I'm asking is for the exact same thing for the homeless. That policy changed, and it changed from the city. It didn't change from this police department.
But here's my view, and I'm just one person at City Hall who does vote on things and signs ordinances and have for the last 2.5 years. I have never signed an ordinance that says that our homeless policy and the treatment of them changes. I understand that there will be departments with which you deal and activists and others that are saying any number of things, but you're in the midst of, in some ways, a political discussion. If my colleagues wish to actually change how we carry out enforcement, then we need to change the law as it relates to encampments or tenting or something of that sort. Short of that legal change, I don't actually see something that allows the Board of Police Commissioners fundamentally to alter how we are directing everyone to go out and enforce. And my contention would be, and I've shared this with the city manager, that if there is an encampment, whether it be at Margaret Kemp Park, Westport, South Kansas City, anywhere, then there should be consistency in how we're looking to address the issues. Often with that 48-hour notice, all of those other things, but I don't think people should have to just deal with it throughout the city because of different discussions and views at City Hall on it.
Well, it wasn't a view, it was a change. We didn't arrest at City Hall. I mean, you were very much part of those discussions. We did not. We were told to stand down, and we did.
And in fairness,
I said at the time, and Mayor, you remember, I said this will be a policy across the city, not just for that piece of land. I told you that at the time, that this will have ramifications across the city.
Here's the challenge. How long does it last? Because there was not a legal change. So are we saying that forever? So basically, as I see it, we made a decision not to arrest at a given situation, which, as I understand, officers have done in other situations. Just because there's a decision made not to take that action at a given time, for good or bad, for any other number of reasons, does that mean in perpetuity now?
No, I don't think so. And to your point, I think my point to you, and from my point, Mayor, stay consistent. I've asked that the city publicly state so that everybody knows, not just this police department, but to those who may be affected in any way by arrest or citing or warnings, that the policy is consistent throughout the city. That's all I've asked for, is that the city make a public statement saying that this is the way it's going to be treated, and it's going to be treated equally from one end of the city to the other. And there is no area that it's not going to be treated any differently. That's all I've asked.
And so what I would say now is I think that is the official position of the city.
And will you publicly state that?
I'm publicly stating now that if there is a violation of the Code of Ordinances, right, then that is a violation of the Code of Ordinances in any part of Kansas City. I don't take back, and actually I see great logic in it. I think it was wise we chose not to arrest and drag out a 75-year-old councilwoman who said, by golly, you're not going to arrest anybody here. There was an elective choice that was made to not escalate a fairly tense situation. What I don't think that means, though, is that there should be a years-long sort of thing where we don't enforce under the Code of Ordinances when those continue to be on the books. And so my view would be it is the same law everywhere in the city. We have not exempted entertainment districts or something of that sort. And because of that, there should be consistent enforcement citywide with it, such that if a constituent calls, they can understand that it will be dealt with in some sort of way consistent across the board. And to give everyone else some insurance, and I will fight this on the council floor, to the extent that every one of my colleagues disagrees, I'll say that's great. Pass an ordinance that says that we're going to do something different in different parts of the city. Pass a city hall ordinance, pass a something else, a Westport encampment ordinance. Because in the same way that I was actually part of the discussions on where sometimes we didn't take action, I was also part of the discussions when actions were taken. And that was largely because we did have ordinances on the books that relate to how we should enforce. Just
Again, my only concern here is if we go out and I don't know where the next encampment is someone going to, from the city council or someone else going to say to us, don't enforce here? Because that's what happened. Yes, I'm just saying any instance of where it happened, because that's what happened. As you know, Mayor, we were ready to go that morning, and I said, I think we should make the move, and we would have done it professionally and with as less, issues as we could. But the decision was made not to, and I understand that. I'm not complaining about that, but I am complaining now that things want to change for the betterment of someone else's behalf, or we want to change the system when there it wasn't good enough. And I just don't want the same. If we're going to do it, I want the council to assure that we're going to do it without political interference. We're going to go out and we're going to make our arrests as we see as necessary, like we always have before. That's what I would like to see.
And all I would simply argue is, because I'm in not really a tough position, but the position we're in is there are ordinances that some of us believe should be enforced, right, and others perhaps don't. But we still have the ordinances on the books.
Agree.
And that's all. I cannot make a guarantee that a city council person won't say that this is wrong. I can't make a guarantee that they won't say afterwards, we don't like this law. But all I know is that those laws do exist now. And to the extent our residents are asking for their enforcement, then I would argue that they should be in most situations, unless this board wants to take the invitation that I think the Jackson County prosecutor gave. And this is the reason I'm making the analogy, to start kind of picking, well, what works best with our enforcement scheme broadly. And we suggested at that time that we didn't want to take that invitation. I don't know what our resolution is.
I await the board's direction.
I'd rather see one in writing, so I wouldn't want to do anything today.
Although the challenge is, what would our writing be? The writing is the ordinance that exists. And so I would just refer us to the ordinances.
So if we want to bring those for next meeting, we could do that.
Well, look, perhaps another way to approach it, if arrests are made wherever they're made by the department throughout the city on this issue, will you direct the city attorney's office to enforce those ordinances and charge the people who were arrested?
I'm certain the city prosecutor's office almost always files the charges that are referred to her. The city prosecutor?
I can't know how many hundreds were dismissed around the protest by the city prosecutor. Tickets were issued by our officers and they were dismissed.
Well, I don't know if
The
the city council
The city
voted
council did.
to
The
take care of the
prosecutor filed
tickets.
all the charges.
It was the city council that dismissed them?
council.
All right, I'm sorry. They were dismissed, though.
Well, the charges were gone. I don't know. The dismissed is a legal term, I think, in court by the prosecutor to get rid of them. I don't know what happens when the city council just nullifies the ticket, I guess is what would happen, correct?
Council has discretion to just nullify tickets that are issued?
I believe so. I mean, this is getting beyond what, so in essence, that whatever happened were extinguished. On the point here, the city prosecutor usually will file charges as presented to her. And so that's, I think, where we would be.
I guess my point, Mayor, is some of our same people that were at City Hall are now elsewhere in the city. They've operated under two different systems. I think they need to know what we're doing. I think they need to know what the plan is, and I think they know it's going to be applied consistently. That's all I'm asking from the city. Devise that plan, communicate it publicly, let everybody know what that is.
You're talking about the houseless situation?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Mayor, you were going to
Can I
move
ask-
on to animal control?
Yeah. I mean, but let me just ask this. I mean, is the clarity of the plan, because to an extent, I think there is some understanding, and I don't know if Captain Graves or Patrol, if, I mean, right now, don't we typically, the folks get a warning, it's a 48-hour type thing. I don't know if this is a policy written somewhere, but
It's not, we have not enforced since May of 2020. We have told people that they can go. We've worked with the city when they want to clear encampments. So, we've talked about that several times. We've been present on the scene when parks people go there, but we have not issued any citations. So all I'm saying, if we're going to do that, which again, all I would like to say is, hey, this is the plan. You're going to get agreed upon by the city. You're going to get a 48-hour notice. You're going to get a warning. Your belongings are going to be stored here. You will be taken here to bond. You will go here to get your belongings. However, as Commissioner Dean has applied, I would like the systems in place. And once the systems are in place and it's communicated publicly, we're ready to go.
all right, I'll see from the city side what there is there. This is maybe a bit of frustration I have, not necessarily with this organization, but perhaps others. My job is actually to pass ordinances, right? I passed ordinances. And so even if there's somebody in the neighborhoods department who doesn't like enforcing them, they have a duty to do that. And they can't, through some alternative regulation that they draw up, not approved by city council, subvert them. And I think what I might contend is that for a little while, we've dealt with that in certain ways. But I understand the point, although I guess what your ask is that we ask city staff to come up with a consistent process of
Piece of paper we can put out publicly, social media, however we just, like we'd inform anybody else. This is going to be the policy, and it's going to be across the board, and it's going to be applied uniformly.
Okay. Because I'll always stick with my stickler position of if you violate an ordinance, you might be subject to whatever action, but we'll do that. On animal control, the challenge is there's actually no alternative but to have the police department's cooperation if there are still animal control violations at all. We can't. So if an animal control enforcement officer can't write a warrant, then, or warrant request, then we need to actually have an officer that would do such.
These are administrative warrants, Mayor. We don't serve administrative warrants. We have never served administrative warrants on this police department. You're asking us now to get involved in something we don't do. We serve criminal warrants when we go to the state prosecutor and get a search warrant at a state level for a criminal charge. These are not, in my opinion, state level criminal charges, which a district or a court, a judge sitting at the county level will sign a warrant for. These are administrative warrants issued out of the city, much like for dangerous buildings and other things, of which we also don't engage with. We're not partaking in any of those. So when I got this is contrary to the way we've done business for the 34 years I've been here. That's why I sent the letter, is so that there was no expectation from the judicial side of municipal court that we would be engaging in this. We don't do the investigation. We don't do anything, yet our name is all over the warrant. Matter of fact, the warrant says to be served by a KCMO police officer only.
So my question might be, and I'm not extensively read in this, but I did read chapter 14 of the city code of ordinances, which suggests since 1967, there's been a direction to the Kansas City Police Department to assist or I don't have the language in front of me, but that cooperates with this. So what have we been doing since the 1960s?
When animal control has an effective thing, we would keep the peace. We would show up and say, keep the peace. But we have never served warrants for animal control.
So then what's changing now? So what was the need for the letter, or what's the problem? let me tell you how I get these problems. I don't wake up with these things. I had city staff that said, we need help with homeless enforcement and police won't help us. I had city staff that called me and said, we need help with animal control enforcement and the police won't help us. And so help me solve the
Sure.
situation.
I understand what you're saying. I think policies have changed with KC Pet Project versus how we had things under animal control. I think that's part of those processes. However they change, not sure they're carried over 100% or what happened. But when animal control goes to apply for a warrant at municipal court level, we're not involved. We have nothing to do with it. And then the judge writes on there to be served by a police officer of the city of Kansas City, Missouri. We have no knowledge of it. We haven't been to the site. We don't even know if the probable causes is the same standards as ours. Whoever wrote this, I don't believe has received any training in writing a warrant or doing anything like our people receive here. And then we're told to go execute it, which includes going into a private residence.
Sure. So how did we do it previously? So when we had animal control operations,
I don't know. I don't believe that we were never asked to go into a private residence for animal control. I don't know if they did it on their own. You'd have to ask them, but we were not asked.
And so so no one, maybe you know, Miss Dodge, what did we do with animal control before? Or did they just not remove animals from properties, or what have we been doing for some time? And I understand that perhaps with Pet Project, you have new people writing the putative warrants and looking to enforce in some way, but I'd like some understanding there.
That was my responsibility when I was an animal control prosecutor
Okay.
from February 2019 to my beginning here. During that time period, we didn't issue any warrants, search warrants, as requested by animal control. It was my responsibility to review those warrants to see if there were other non-conflicting ways to resolve the situation, and they all resolved themselves prior to requesting that specific warrant. Those warrants were issued to animal control. Within the warrant authority, it allowed attendance by KCPD for keeping the peace.
Okay.
It was not directed solely to KCPD.
So the way that the warrant request is being written now, and apologies, but I've been asked about it. The way the warrant request is being written now is that it's written out and they're asking an officer to execute the search warrant in its entirety. And previously, there was a warrant request administratively, and an officer was only present to keep the peace in the event of some concern. Is that somewhat accurate?
Yes, I believe some of it was decisions and or advice within KCMO, so I really can't advise on
Understood.
that.
I understand. Yes, ma'am.
But as the case that was presented to us, and we were told it's the only warrant that had been requested, it was presented and the affidavit and application was by KCPP.
Mhm.
The search warrant ordered by the judge was only authorizing it was written by KCPP. The search warrant was granted only to KCPD. So it did not include KCPP as an authorized entity to go into the home, to take evidence, to investigate.
So my thought would typically be, though, that the judge would be the authority on the propriety of the issuance of the warrant. But is our view that the judges are misinterpreting statute right now? Or I guess you wouldn't say that publicly, but the judge does issue the warrant, yes?
It's an administrative warrant, though. It's not a criminal search warrant. It's a city administrative warrant.
But the judge is issuing the warrant and putting KCPD on said warrant.
Correct. But I'm just saying, Mayor, we don't go file for administrative warrants. I mean, they're like civil actions, frequently done through county sheriff's department and deputies. We file for criminal warrants. Like, we have an example where there was a dog fighting ring where there was other criminal elements present. We filed for a search warrant based on those criminal elements. We served a search warrant. The dogs had to be part of it because it was part of the overall case. But we didn't go there just specifically on a dog ordinance.
So is the solution So the city will continue to likely issue administrative warrants. Yeah, or they do it now. They didn't do it when you were there, but they're into it now.
They'd only done one that we've been able to confirm. We are in the process of getting the information so that we can have the communication to understand what the request is. The language of the letter from the chief clearly stated that as it currently stands, it is a risk to the community as well as officers, as well as the animals, to have the situation that we currently have. And any further advice I'd be happy to give in closed
Can
session.
I just make a couple comments too? Because I think that it's counterproductive for our officers to be in and putting them in a bad situation, because that's a very emotional situation. As a pet owner, somebody came in and wanted to take my pet out of my house, and we're talking about not putting our officers in emotional situations and putting more social workers and things like that. Maybe that's a perfect opportunity to have a social worker from the city go in with them and not a police officer, because I think that puts people on a defensive edge and it puts everybody in a bad position.
I agree with that. The one thing that, when I think of warrants, applications for warrants and receiving them, I go to my legal background, and maybe in the city it's different, but usually a warrant, someone asks for a warrant, and the person that asks, the affiant that the judge is relying on, has to be there to justify what they're asking for. And then that person or that entity, when they receive the warrant, can go and execute the warrant. But we've got what I understand here to be a break in that. The judge is not talking to the person who was sponsoring the warrant and saying, we need this, and here's why, and here's what we've seen, and all that sort of thing. The judge isn't talking to that person. And then they're handing a warrant to a person, a police officer apparently, that knows nothing about the basis for requesting the warrant or what needs to be done or what the danger is. So there's a break in the legal concept of a warrant is issued by someone who provides evidence to the judge that this needs to be done, because that's not happening.
But the judge
It's
is,
a bad situation.
but the judge still issues unless we're challenging the judge's decision, the warrant issued by the judge is a valid warrant, right? Or are we going to a worldview where the judge's decision isn't valid?
I'm assuming that it is valid. The problem is at least in my understanding of due process and requesting warrants, it's supposed to go to the person or the entity that is alleging that this action needs to be taken. And that's not what's happening here.
I would say, I don't know if the validity of the warrant's good or bad, Mayor, but I would say in 34 years, everyone who's gotten a warrant here has had to sign as a law enforcement officer providing the truth and facts above in order for the judge to make their decision to serve the search warrant. They have to sign that, and it has to be, under oath, and that we do it. None of that's happening here to my knowledge. I don't know how the process, but it's not anywhere near what we do in state court.
So what's the solution then, I guess? I'm in a big ordinance defending mood today.
Yeah,
And so chapter 14 says that there are animal cruelty violations. And I agree, there are much bigger issues although a lot of people say this is one of the biggest issues we deal with. And so I'm not going to speak to the importance of it one way or the other. But so how do we address this issue?
I think there should be some animal control enforcement. I don't think it should be the police department going into someone's house to do it. And that's where I think we should draw the line. So as it says, my letter does not say we won't assist the Kansas City Pet Project. It says we won't initiate or execute warrants based on that.
And what about the position where there needs to be a seizure of the animal itself? So how is that effectuated?
Again, we're not going to seize that animal. I don't see that as that wasn't our role with animal control for the first 30 years I was on the police department. We didn't seize them.
And animal control typically effectuated the seizure.
Correct.
And so the idea here would be, and I want to be able to tell Pet Project folks this, that they will continue likely to apply for administrative warrants. That's a different question for municipal court and Judge Wilcher. And to the extent they need the intervention of the Kansas City Police Department, it's merely to keep the peace rather, outside without an officer breaching entry or something of that sort.
We will keep the peace as long as our name is not on the warrant. But if we show up and our name's on that warrant, then we're executing the warrant. So if the judge wants to issue that warrant, say Kansas City Pet Project can execute that warrant, great, we'll come up and keep the peace. But if they put on there to be executed by a Kansas City, Missouri police officer, then I think we're serving the warrant.
Did the Pet Project ask for KCPD to execute the warrants, or was this the judge taking the election upon himself, respectfully, again, to the court? But
I'm not sure which way that was.
Okay.
And just so you know, we've had conversations with Kansas City Pet Project. We've had numerous talks about this. This is not the first time it came up. The reason why it came up is because one of our field sergeants got involved in this, and the risk and liability to this department is huge. And in my opinion, for the safety of everyone involved, pets, because our answer, we're not trained in pets. What's our answer if we have a pet that starts getting aggressive? We only have one tool in the toolbox that we use usually, and that doesn't come out good for anybody. So
No.
I'm saying here, it is as a case to Commissioner Dean or Commissioner Kramer's point, I feel like we're going to escalate it just by showing up, not de-escalate it. And I don't think we want to be in that position as a police department or city.
Yeah, that's an
I
emotional
have a fear, and I'll
case.
wrap soon. I'm sorry, Bishop, but I have a fear that I think the court has a view that the police department is the only entity that can execute the warrant based on some grounds.
I would believe that's correct. Only a
it's-
law enforcement agency.
So we
and
need
it's-
to change that. How do we do that?
But I think the court's reading state law for that.
I don't know of any private entity, contractor or otherwise, that can apply for a search warrant. That does not, I've never heard of that in my entire life. It has to be a government entity that files for that search warrant, and it has to be a criminal mode, except for civil, like repellent orders and things like that are served through the county, through the deputy system.
Well, it sounds like they filed for the search warrant, but it didn't put their name on it, put our name on it.
Correct.
Exactly.
That's what happened.
So how do we, I guess the question is, how do we change that or modify that?
And I agree with you. There has to be some animal regulation in the city, Mayor. I'm totally in agreement with you on that. I think this could have been handled some other ways. This lady reportedly walked her dog, did some other things. Maybe they could have stayed and waited until she went outside with the dog. I don't know. But going into someone's house is where we feel there's the potential for, thanks. I just feel like, I really don't want us to get in a bad position here. Anybody,
that's absolutely right.
including the Kansas City Pet Project. I don't want them in a bad, and we've talked to them and we've tried, but I feel like they're locked into this path as the only solution. And I think there needs to be discussion about broader solutions. To Commissioner Kramer's point, there's a whole world out here of options. We just got to explore them.
How do we, I don't know if municipal court gives us this opportunity, or maybe even just the main 16th Judicial Circuit. Can we get some direction, almost declaratory action-esque, as to what the roles and responsibilities are of the different entities involved with animal control enforcement? Can we ask the presiding judge, for example, to let us know that if there's an administrative warrant request, KCPD's name isn't just written on it, and then, there becomes this dispute as to whom is enforcing?
I would say that would be a city function. I think the city could request that. We're not requesting the warrants. I just feel like we shouldn't be involved in this process. We're not the ones asking for it. We're not the ones trying to execute it. I think the city or the Kansas City Pet Project should do that.
And
See my point?
And is that better at the municipal court level, or do we have to go to the circuit court?
I wouldn't be able to advise in regards to that.
Understood.
Because it's, I'm only
I'll get-
advising KCPD in this position. If I made those recommendations, that would be inappropriate.
So Mr. Kinner?
The city has a legal department. You'll be able to figure it out.
Right. The challenge is, are we, so I'm trying to think how Pet Project makes the application because they think something bad is happening. They go to municipal court. The judge actually granted everything the city wanted is the problem. So the city would have to ask to just have the warrant for them, I guess is what we're asking the city to do.
I haven't seen the form, but it's my understanding from the letter that the form says to be executed by the Kansas City Police Department.
It
So
does.
you've got
That's
to-
right.
Judge, I think the
A
judge.
police officer by Kansas City. But Mayor, I mean, I just think we should change this. You don't want Kansas City Pet Project going into someone's
I
house
agree.
either.
That's
I mean,
right.
this is, I think we need to
Emotional
change
situation.
direction of the discussion. The discussion should be about how can we enforce these, in the best possible way without anyone getting hurt. Because anyone getting hurt over any of this doesn't seem right to me. So I think we should take a step back and say, okay, what can we do? Can we issue it in the mail? Send them a summons in the mail, show up to court and handle it over there in a courtroom rather than on the front lawn of someone's house.
Because if there is probable cause for the entry, there's likely probable cause to find some violation theoretically, if they've seen the
Same-
emaciated.
Probable cause is probable cause, same standard.
I mean, how is this going to play out? You've got an aggressive dog, probably.
Yes.
You enter, the officers enter into somebody's house, the dog charges, what's going to happen? The dog's going to get shot.
Right, the
Or you
challenge,
have an aggressive dog owner.
but that's, and I think that's,
You know,
that's the Pet
That
Project
too,
and,
yes.
and the court's concern. Because we also don't want the Pet Project person showing up and saying, I have the authority, kind of like how the health department wore their, we can do whatever we want. We're going to enter in here, and then they end up getting shot, which would also be a bad result for all of us. So
Different scenario though, really, because there you've got a comprehensively regulated industry. And so the warrant requirements aren't the same for comprehensively regulated industries, whether it's health department regulations on restaurants or whatever. But you were dealing with a private house, it's a different standard.
what do we do with, I've gotten too far afield. I was going to
No,
ask,
go
what do we
ahead.
do with dangerous buildings?
The city handles them. We're not involved. The city, I mean, now if they come to us and say, hey, we're going to tear this down, we want to see if anyone's sleeping in here before we do it, we'll go and sweep it for them to make sure that
Got
it's
it.
safe for everybody. But that's the extent of our thing. We are not there as an agent. We're not on the paperwork. We're not involved in the process in any form other than someone's calling us like any other house in the city calling us and saying, we're requesting you here to make sure it's safe. That's it. And it's the same thing we do across the city for anybody that would call. And we do the same thing for the city employees that call. But we're not on the paperwork. We're not executing. We didn't apply for. We didn't call it a dangerous building. None of that. We're out of all of that.
And how do other major cities do this? I mean, is it I assume there's how does St. Louis do this? Not that it's good or bad, but.
Usually animal control is in a major city is a separate entity from the police department. Some of the smaller, like our Prairie Villages and Leawood, they mix their police officers
Same.
and animal control, so they may do it differently. But I would assume they also receive some training in it, right? That they just don't one day become animal control officers and go out and deal with things, but they would be trained and certified in whatever they have to do.
Because I guess our goal is a well-trained animal control officer, of which Pet Project hired several of them, I think, or we didn't fire the people, so they're still there, are the ones that go and say, you can't do whatever with this dog, or they can't be in this part of the city. And then if this person doesn't comply, then we have an alternative remedy. You can send them a criminal summons, then they have to answer in municipal court. And that's a different way that doesn't relate to seizure of the animal.
I mean, to me, if I was advising on this subject, that's what I would advise, and not to go to the house and make a confrontation.
So Mayor, can the city council write an ordinance to that effect? And, since you're the ordinance
Yeah.
guru.
Yeah, I mean, it would be an ordinance that would change what they can do, I think. Because right now, Chapter 14 probably says you have the right to seize an animal that's either not lawful to be here or violating some city ordinance, right? The same way somebody had an alligator in their backyard, we can seize the animal. It's not, I guess the question we've never thought of, who does it?
I have a wonderful text from my friend on the police department who says the Washington Post lawsuit, St. Louis County sent SWAT team, killed a dog over code violations. And they're getting sued. So I guess it's pretty pertinent, and to try not to put us in that position. But we only serve a warrant one way, Mayor, and that is to, either call people out, or when we have to go into a house, we will make everybody in there lay down, get handcuffed. We will safely execute that warrant. I mean, I just can't see us doing that over a pet violation.
And it just doesn't, is the whole theory of this, it doesn't come up that much?
I don't know how often it comes. No, I'm sure there's all kinds of pet violations in this city. I mean, most everyone at this table is a dog owner or a pet owner in some capacity. I mean, we all know how pets are, and we've all been out in the city, and sure, there are pets that are malnourished and mistreated that probably need to be addressed. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I just remain at a loss, and we can perhaps, I just don't know how we address it. And the problem is, if we change the code of ordinances, I guess you can increase the criminal violations. You create a quicker criminal violation once an animal control officer knows that there's something, and then you arrest the human being subject for the violation, and that's how you deal with it instead of seizing the animal.
I would say that'd be a great path, Mayor.
All right.
We aren't going to solve it today, it sounds like.
Yeah, and the judge seems to think something different too, which is a problem.
But does the judge operate based upon the ordinance from the city? Or do they operate based upon state statute?
The way I read it, actually, I think the judge is thinking that state law, because it's chapter 571 or something of that sort in state law that relates to warrant execution. I think, I hate to speak for him, but I think reading it, he believes that only a peace officer can actually enforce warrants. And so therefore, if he has a valid warrant for entry or seizure, he's saying, city, you can't do it anyway, so I'm going to assign it to the police department. And that's where the problem occurs, because perhaps there's a conflict of laws here, actually.
I just want it to be safe. The whole thing here is I don't want anyone getting hurt over this. I don't want a dog. I don't want a person. I don't want a police officer to have to defend themselves. And the only way they were if we put them in that position. And that's my whole basis for this. I think the discussion should be moved totally away from this kind of police action in our city. That's just my 2 cents worth on this.
It's removing seizures entirely.
Yes. With the police department, I mean, I guess if they go up there in the yard and the dog comes to them and they can put them in the truck and there's no confrontation, everything's great. Hey, wonderful. That's wonderful.
But I'd also argue, just because I got to step up for them too, we also don't want animal control officers actually, they probably can't lawfully kick down someone's door.
I don't see how they could under the Constitution. I don't see how that'd be constitutional.
So we've got a legal problem, I guess. All right.
No, I'm calling roll. So that was the mayor's supposedly 2 minutes.
Can I say 2 things though, real quick? This was good discussion. I mean, I appreciate us having this discussion. I don't want anyone to think, I know there's different views here, but this is what we should be doing, is working this out, because I don't want there to be confusion, just like with the homeless issue. I want there to be a consistent path. I think our citizens and I think our city deserves that people understand where they stand and why. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kramer?
I agree with everything that's gone on. I think this has been great. And, again, I just stress the importance of de-escalating the situation, because I just feel pets and that is just a super emotional thing. So yeah, I would like to figure out how we can work around that and not be involved. And I think there's better use of the officer's time as well than doing.
Commissioner Wagner, anything?
Nothing to add.
All right. Commissioner Dean?
I think I've spoken enough.
All right, and we have our schedule for meetings, so we will entertain a motion to dismiss and go into close.
I move that we end this open session and go into closed.
Second.
Over aye.
Dean, aye.
Wagner, aye.
Lucas, aye.
Kramer, aye.
Thank you all for attending today.